Good evening and happy Sunday as we welcome you into the first ever Horizon Football Playoff Preview Show here on Southern Ohio Sports Authority, presented by OhioHealth. I'm Dewey Daly. I'll be attempting to hold things in check for us here tonight. It could be difficult, though, as the group we've assembled here is quite the group of people. To my right, we have Derek Webb and Brock Netter, and to my left, we have John Bruce. And, you know, it really does seem like just last week me and Jacob were setting things up over at Zane Trace for their Week 1 matchup with, I believe it was Logan Elm. And, you know, here we are rolling into Week 11. I don't know about you guys, but, you know, it really does seem like the high school football regular season goes by in the blink of an eye.
Brock wrote that in a Power Rankings column. It's Week 10 already. It's Week 11 now. So we always get so excited about football season, and then then it's basketball season all of a sudden. So we got a lot to talk about. A lot of playoff teams from our coverage area. After the OHSAA expanded that 8-team regions to the 16 teams, but it's cool. I mean, we can't wait.
And like you said, we have a lot to talk about. The order for anybody watching that I think we're going to try to roll off of is we're going to go Division 4, Division 5, Division 3, and then Division 6. And then I think there's also a couple of Division 7 teams that we'll try to catch on the end or maybe mix them somewhere in between. But for starters, we'll start with Division 4. We got a lot of teams in Division 4, and I don't know what order we want to go in, but a first-round game that you're looking forward to. Either I can go first, or we can try to establish some kind of order.
I don't know how much order you're going to get with this group.
Yeah.
Right?
Exactly. Good luck with that, Dewey.
Well, I'm going to go first.
Absolutely.
All right.
Yeah. So for me, I would say Clinton Massey at Uniota is my game I'm most looking forward to. When I look through the matchups, I think that's the one that could be the most surprising. You look at the rankings and the records, 13 versus 4. But if you look at the Fantastic 50 website, Drew Pester's website, which does all these computer rankings and computer simulations, it actually has Clinton Massey as a 5-point favorite. This will be the first time under the playoff rankings, the computer rankings, that Uniota will have a home game. They had a home game a couple years ago when the coaches did the seedings.
Yeah.
So, yeah, let's go. Let's go, Dewey.
2 Uniota grads.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well,
no kidding.
and one of them
3.
was playing in it. Yeah. So, it's going to be their first time with a bigger crowd, too, because that year was without the crowd and whatnot. So it's going to be a big time atmosphere for the Shermans. And then they get the gift of the defending Division 4 state champion Clinton Massey Falcons. Clinton Massey started 1-4 to start the year, but they have played just an unreal schedule. Their only game they dropped in the last 5 was to, Novak and the Western Brown Broncos. It's a very tough matchup. They run about 5 plays. They throw the ball very rarely, which is about 3 times a game. But those 5 plays they run, they do it really well. And it's going to be a really tough matchup for the Shermans. But if they can stay disciplined, they might be able to pull off the upset. Massey doesn't do an amazing job in pass defense. If you try to run it up the middle on them, you're not going to be able to. So Uniota is going to need to use their athletes, which they've done a great job of this year. And I think they've got a chance to pull off the upset and, kind of just see where they're at.
Oh, when you say pull off the upset, way are you referring?
Uniota.
Okay.
I think,
because
I know it's 4 versus 13, but
right.
if you're making odds on the game, if you're doing the numbers, it's probably Clinton Massey's probably favored in that matchup.
Right. And you go ahead.
You said that they run the ball well. Throughout the season, that's been Uniota's strength is stopping the run.
Mm-hmm.
I really feel like even in Uniota's loss in conference play to Zane Trace, we were at that game, and Zane Trace, they win that game, but the back-breaking plays were in their pass game, where I felt like Uniota did a really good job stopping up the run. Nolan Fox up there up front. I love you have to help me. Andrew Griffin off the end. I mean, just they're athletic up front. And of course Nolan reminds me of DJ Reader as Bengals fans. He plugs up the middle though. That's what you have to do against Massey. And I agree with you to pull up off an upset.
Yeah,
it's kind of weird that it's an upset. That it's an upset.
Yeah.
It's really strange to say that, but I mean, just football traditions. I mean, John, like you said, which one are you really going to go with on this one?
Yeah.
Well, and you say Clinton Massey has troubles through the air defensive wise, and you pair that with Newton Hoops and Maddox
Mhm.
Fox offensively. And you look at a 13 seeded Clinton Massey. This is a team that you said defending state champs went 14-1 last year, 5-5 so far this year. Like you said, and really like everybody said, I think it'll be a pretty interesting matchup
Mhm.
to look at.
Yeah, Dan McSorley has won a lot of football games. um, Shout out to him because I did my health student teaching with him.
Really?
Yeah, so it'll be a big matchup for me personally.
That's one way to put it. Okay.
Yeah.
Some other games in Division 4, we have number 6 Logan Elm taking on number 11 Cambridge, Columbus East taking on Vinton County, and Cincinnati, Wyoming is hosting the 16th seeded Waverly. Any thoughts on any of those 3 games, guys?
I'm gonna tell you what, that 14-3 matchup with Vinton County and Columbus East, I think it could get really interesting. Here's why. So there's always kind of been this stigma with Columbus City inner city schools that that they're good but they're not great, and that they just don't have just that fervor to just keep going further. And here's why I say this could be really interesting, because looking at Columbus East's schedule, they've only played 2 teams with a winning record. Now they won both those games, but one of them was over Scott, who went 8-2. The other one was Northland, who went 5-4. Everyone else has had a losing record. They've only won 2 or 3 games. So what that tells me is that your schedule is not that great. Now on the other side for Vinton County, while their schedule isn't as great either, they have played some competition. Obviously, they took a loss to Unioto, a loss to Nelsonville York. They took a bad loss to Warren, in which their quarterback Isaac Molan, he suffered an injury, underwent surgery, so he's done. But this team has just rallied and rallied and rallied. And in the second year under head coach T.J. Carper, they've gotten better and better every single season, going 6-4 last year, which was their best record since 1999, I believe, just to go 7-3 this year and top what they did last year. This is a group that believes in itself. They have an identity. They're not gonna change who they are. And I think just the simple fact that they have a stable of backs, being Garrett Brown, you have Gabe Rashi, Parker Schomborn, who's under center now. He can run the ball as well. Matt Hembry as well. They have a crew of guys who can run the ball, who can chew clock and keep this game low scoring. And also they have some big guys up front who can create some holes, and they can do the same vice versa for linebackers to come and make tackles. I think this game could be very interesting, which is probably why I'm going to make the trip to Columbus East on Friday to check this matchup out.
When looking at the strength of schedule, East actually has the next to last strength of schedule in the state. They played the 104th best schedule, so they are not going to be real battle tested.
Mm-hmm.
And with the way that Vinton County will grind it out, I think it's definitely going to be it's going to be a knockdown drag out fight. And I think Vinton County's got an excellent chance in that game.
I don't think East will have seen a team that just competes in the trenches the way that Vinton County will. So it's just that mentality that we are blue collar. We are going to run this thing down. If this game is low scoring, I think Vinton County pulls the upset.
And I know, Derek, I think it was me, you, Jacob, and Corey here earlier. You talked a lot about the Licking Valley and Gallia matchup. Any thoughts for that game?
Yeah, I got a chance to see Gallia earlier this year. Brody Fuller, their quarterback, Hudson Shamblin, that back there in the backfield. They can do either. They can pass the ball. They can run the football. And really I got to see them against Fairland and Shamblin, and Fuller really kind of took over, in the times that they needed to take over. When the game was on the line, that's where the ball was. They've got Isaac Clary, the big guy, I believe he's a left tackle. He's a Division I recruit, and when you see him, he is a mountain of a man. He's got Fuller's backside protected there. And then you have Kenyon Franklin out wide that can really make plays in space. The thing about Gallia is Hudson's twin brother, I believe it's Hunter, I want to say that. I'm not 100% sure about that. But when we went down to talk to Hudson, he was actually the backup running back, and his brother was the starting running back. His brother broke his I think it was his leg. Hudson comes in and fills in pretty nicely. They go 8-2 and really compete all year long for the OVC title until week 10. They take Ironton to the brink. It was 29-22 final. They had a chance to tie the game and to push it into overtime. They couldn't get that done, but I mean, you're in Ironton. You push Ironton to the brink. That says something about itself. Licking Valley's really good. I mean, I don't think there's any getting around that. 5-5, but when you look at their schedule, they've lost to Sheridan, who's 9-1. They've lost to West Holmes, who's 10-0. Watkins Memorial, Lyman Central Catholic, and Granville, who all has 6 wins or more, and 2 of those last 3 has 8. So Licking Valley knows. I mean, that's a football school. So it's a tall task. Gallia's the home seed. They're going to be hosting that game. But if you're looking at can they get the job done, they got to play their game. But to me, if you can take Ironton to the brink, you can play anybody close if you play their game. The problem with Gallia and the problem and even the Fairland game where they won that game, I think it was 43-35. The defense. There was glaring holes in the defense. I think they've patched those up after the last couple of weeks here, or after that Fairland game. But yeah, I mean, Gallia's 8-2. I think their first undefeated start. We were talking about that a couple years back. They started 7-0. Last time they did that, it was 2000. It
was 2019.
2019.
Yeah,
they lose to Ironton like 40-0, and then they lose to Waverly in the playoffs. Who had a really good team that year. But yeah, I mean. It's going to be a tall task for the Blue Devils, but they can get it done if they play like they did in Ironton.
And towards the end of that, you made mention of Waverly. Maybe not something we're used to seeing Waverly this low down on the seedings. The 16th seed just snuck in with the win over Oak Hill in Week 10, taking on Cincinnati, Wyoming. Now, we kind of know, what history Cincinnati, Wyoming has with Division IV teams around here. Do we have any thoughts about that game, or maybe any predictions, anything like that?
Wyoming gave up 28 points this year. So that's
all year.
Yeah.
They're really good.
Yeah. They are very, very strong. Now, one thing I'll say, it appears that the Cincinnati Hills League isn't as strong as it typically is. They were pushed a little bit by Madeira, who was not coming off a great year last year. They were actually tied, I believe, at halftime or late in the first half of that game. They ended up pulling away, won that 23-7. But they haven't. I mean, just their scores are kind of hilarious. But the last 3 weeks, 49-14, 65-0, then 23-7.
65-0.
Yeah, they have not been overly tested. Where Waverly had to really start to play well near at the end of the year to get into the playoffs. So Waverly, is the big underdog. But if you look at, and we go to the Fantastic 50, and they do, they are a 31-point dog, which different division or different 1 versus 16s are like 48, 49, 46. So Waverly's a good team. It's a tough matchup. Tough matchup. I like their offense. Anybody that can run the ball, and they also throw the ball really well. I don't think they'll get blanked. But it's a tall task, especially going down to Wyoming. It's going to be a tough game, but Coach Crabtree's done a great job with Waverly, and kind of like another team we'll talk about in Division 5 with Piketon. Kind of probably went above expectations for how much they lost last year. So getting an extra week of practice is really good for them as they got a lot of guys coming back next year as well.
They had a brother duo at quarterback receiver this year with Mason Hudson Kelly. They lost one last year with Wade and Will Futhy. When you look at the losses they've had, though, I mean, Wheelersburg, Chillicothe, Johnson Central, West, and Unyota, every one of those teams are in the playoffs. And West was a 49-42 game that they were right in until the end of until the horn. Then Unyota was really a closer game. It was a 21-point.
They're up by a point with 5 minutes left.
Yeah, I mean, so they can move the ball. They've got an offense that's good. And they've got playmakers. I mean, we talked to Jace Hurd was our September athlete of the month.
Yeah,
we know how good he can be,
putting up ridiculous numbers.
So if they can, I was at Wyoming when Unioto went
Yeah.
down there a couple years back,
Mhm.
and their kid in warm-ups is their quarterback had verbally committed to Purdue, and he's just flicking it, and it's just a 50-yard pass in warm-ups, hitting his receivers in stride. You knew then this is a different level, and that's what Wyoming. I mean, they shut out, I believe it was Cincinnati Taft, 20-0. When you're doing that, I mean you've got a lot of good football players on that sideline. So is it a tall task? Absolutely, but like you said, there's tougher tasks in the state of Ohio in this region.
Yeah. So I mean, yeah, you mentioned Taft. Taft, I believe, was the 2 seed in this region. It was 20-0 in week 2, and just kind of bullied them around. But they've played a low end schedule. Like I mentioned, Cincinnati Hills League not as good as typical. But it's
anything is possible.
Yeah, that's why you line up and go play.
And that kind of segues us a little bit into our next topic. We've discussed all 5 of these matchups in regions 15 and 16. Are we thinking there's an upset alert, on the verge with any of these matchups? I know we kind of talked about Unioto and Clinton Massey. That seems like it's going to be an upset either way. It's either going to be a point spread upset or it's going to be a seeded upset. But we also talked about the other 4 games. So are any of us taking a shot in the dark here, thinking we're going to get an upset with any 5 of those games?
I'm going to go Vinton County over Columbus East. I'm going to take it. I just think that there's just something there. When I saw the matchup, I said that is very, very favorable. I just think Vinton County just has it enough to where they can pull out the win, go on the road, especially having the experience that they did last year going on the road in their playoff game to Meadowbrook. Much different atmosphere, long road trip, but just having that experience, having a number of those guys back who understand what it takes to compete at the playoff level. I believe that Vinton County will pull off the upset and beat Columbus East and advance to the second round.
I'm going to keep it short, and this guy knows Vinton County. I'm going to go with Brock. I think Vinton County does go up there. I love Coach Karp up there. I mean, I think he's done. I mean, you've told me too, done a great deal to that program to improve it, to get it to further into their goal systems. They're in the playoffs now, so like you said, you got to line up. Anything can happen. I'm going to go with Brock. I say Vinton County beats Columbus East. Yeah.
One thing to look for in that is if East can get the points up. They like to score a lot of points. But
yeah.
Benton County has not given up more than 21 points in a game this year. And that includes at least one overtime game. So, I mean, they are a really good ball control defensive team. I think they definitely have a good chance. Now, I went with something that, maybe our viewers aren't going to love, but I said Gallia Academy. That's another tough opening round matchup like Unioto has with the 5-5 team.
Yeah.
Licking Valley, one of the tougher schedules in the state. They have a combination like Newton Hoops and Maddox Fox with Hayden Rogers and Aiden Stallnaker. They've hooked up for nearly 800 yards and 7 touchdowns through the air this year. Definitely a dynamic offense. I do like what Gallia does. I think they're playing well. But if they are not ready to go, Licking Valley will be a team that will come in and upset you if you're not ready.
So remember, Licking Valley, they won a state title, just 4 or 5 seasons ago as well. So there's a lot of program, tradition that goes, with playing Licking Valley, and especially with the schedule they play. They're not scared to play anyone. They're not scared to go on the road. It doesn't matter where they have to go. You line them up, and you see what happens. It wouldn't surprise me if Licking Valley did beat Gallia.
Yeah. Well, and then you mentioned they're not scared to go play anybody anywhere. When we go to 16 teams getting in, it why not? Why not go play those games? Because if you're going to be good in your league in any way, you're going to get in the playoffs. So that's the only thing, you got to get in. So like for me, when I look at Clinton Massey, where they played a really tough schedule, I don't think they cared. They wanted wins, but at the same time, they're like, you know what, we're going to get in the playoffs, and then we'll see how it goes. And that's what like a Licking Valley. You play these really tough schedules. You get prepared for the tournament or the playoffs. Not everyone gets in, so you still have to do some things. There's actually going out of our area, Division II which was I was following it last night. There was a game. Is Dayton Belmont and Dayton Dunbar were playing. If Belmont won, they got into the playoffs as the 16 seed, and they're going to play Winton Woods, who's a top 11 team in the state according to Fantastic 50. Belmont is listed as the worst team in that region, the worst team in Division II, and they almost got in. They ended up losing. But then Winton Woods gets a top 50 team in LaSalle, who went 2-8, who just said, you know what, we're just going to go play, get a couple wins, and they get in, and now you have a top 50 matchup in a 1 versus 16 game.
So, we kind of talked about upsets a little bit. We haven't touched on Logan Elm as much, but they're one of these teams where, are we thinking they can go beyond Week 11, maybe even beyond Week 12, make a Week 13 appearance? You can also throw in, you said Vinton County. Can they win a Week 12 matchup if they can pull up the upset over Columbus East, Unioda as well, maybe Waverly? Are we thinking any of these teams can maybe extend their playoff runs and maybe make it to a Week 12 or 13?
I think Logan Elm has a great draw to be able to make it to Week 13. I think they're not going to be a super heavy favorite over Cambridge, but they'll be a pretty sizable, probably 2-score favorite over Cambridge. If they can win that game, then they get the winner of Vinton County and Columbus East. And I think East is, if Vinton County doesn't get them, I think Logan Elm will get them. And I think if Vinton County wins, Vinton County versus Logan Elm could be a big time matchup in our area. I think it's very doable for Logan Elm. I like the way their offense has gone. They're one of the most improved teams in the state, regardless of division. It's a team that's playing really well. They competed well with Bloom Carroll, who's a juggernaut. And I mean, when your 2 losses are to Bloom Carroll and Zane Trace, who are combined 19-1, you've done pretty well. So I like their chance. They're I believe they're a 6 seed. Yeah,
6 and 11.
Yeah. So I think they've got a really good chance.
I think Logan Elm goes to Week 13 because of Blayton Reed in that run game. But Braylon Baker, when they throw the ball to him, it opens up the run game like it needs to be opened up. I mean, that offensive line has done its job all year long. But when Braylon Baker stretches the field and Aaron Walters can get him the ball, and that's happened a lot over these last 3 weeks here, when that happens, Blayton Reed in the backfield everything just opens up. I say they do beat Cambridge, and then I don't care who it is at the next. I still think they win that game. I don't know if I want to guarantee that, but if I had to put money on one team in this region making it to Week 13, it's Logan Elm.
That's a bold prediction. I mean, and you touched on Blayton Reed a little bit. 1,326 yards, 15 touchdowns. I can't remember. Actually, I do remember. It was against Fairfield Union. I don't remember what week it was, but 310 rushing yards, 2 touchdowns. I think we had somebody there, and I think
Tyler Hart was there on camera tonight. Tyler Hart's our resident Logan Elm expert. But he's also our Logan Elm grad. But yeah, I mean it broke the single game record.
Yeah. And you also touched on Aaron Walters, who I also believe first-year starter for Logan Elm. 62% completion percentage, 1,672 yards, 17 touchdowns to 6 interceptions. You also mentioned Braylon Baker. That's somebody that they didn't have last year. They're able to pick him back up, 31 catches for 653, 10 receiving touchdowns. I like the pick with Logan Elm.
Yeah, and that's what, for schools in our area, our local area, that's what you have to do. You have to get your best athletes out playing, because if Baker's not playing, that's an unbelievable athlete that you don't have. But then you get him, that adds just another dynamic aspect to your offense, and that's taken them to another level. I watched them in a scrimmage at the beginning of the season. I was like, man, this team, they look better. They just look better than they had in the last couple of years. And I mean, obviously they are. I mean, 8-2 is in the MSL is a heck of a season, and I like the chances for them to make.
Walters you said better. He just continues to get better as he gets more reps, as he gains experience and is able to read the defense. And that's one thing actually in Tyler's article in Week 10, where Coach said, hey, he's just understanding things more. The more that we put him out there, we keep saying sophomore, but he doesn't play like a sophomore. So if he continues to play at that level and then get the run game going, you're talking about week 13. Who knows? We could see him week 14.
Yeah.
Right.
So another would be they're a 4 seed, and they've got a monster matchup with Clinton Massey in week 11 coming up.
Right.
But the winner of that game has an excellent chance to win the next week. Urbana and I'm not off the top of my head right now.
So you're saying if Unioto win,
yeah,
they could beat maybe somebody had told me, I think it was Coach Hinton, Coach Ron Hinton. I saw him at a St. Trace game, and he said, "You see who?" This was before week 10 even played. He said, "You see who Unioto may draw?" And he said, "Yeah." I said, "Now things could change." He said, "It's the worst Clinton Massey team we've had in years," and it's still Clinton Massey.
Yes.
And that's the thing that people don't understand is you said it upset. It's still Clinton Massey.
Yeah.
They still have the program.
And I'm going back to that time when I was student teaching there. Coach McSorley would talk to those kids, and the football players are they are bought in on every word he says. So if he tells them when they start 1-4, you know what, we're gonna go 6-4, 5-5, we're gonna go to the playoffs, and we're gonna go back to state. Those kids believe it, and they put in the work for it. So they are a very, very tough opponent. I think the winner of that game definitely makes it to week 13 because
the 5-12 matchup, Urbana and St.
Paris Graham, which is another place that McSorley was at, which a wrestling school,
big wrestling,
big wrestling school.
Huge one.
I like that matchup in week 12 for whoever wins that game. So it's going to be a very tall task, but I think if there was a Unioto team that was going to do it, it would be this one. Newton Hoops he has gotten so much better from. It's night and day from last year, just confidence wise. Maddox Fox is a monster. Blake Hoops, a very good receiver. They do a great job of mixing in Matt Griffin, who's almost 13 yards a carry. Matt Griffin, Corbin DeMint, who's kind of their workhorse back, and Casey Dre. And then their defense has been really good all year against the run, so they're going to get a big test. But I do think that they have an excellent chance to make a little bit of a run if they can put it together in week 11.
When you talk about Unioto, what a JV program Unioto has. Back-to-back SBC titles. Coach Ford.
Yeah.
Coach Ford getting them right.
I feel like you're speaking from experience here, Dewey.
Oh, I'm an absolute Saturday morning superstar. 2 years. It was a good time. We've talked about a few players, but when you look at these 5 teams, well, actually, it may have been a few. When you look at these regions and the teams we cover in them, are there any players that you think, I don't want to say carry the weight of their team's fate on their shoulders, but would play an enormous impact in them advancing on throughout the playoffs?
I'll start here with a story. There was somebody I was talking to in the Chillicothe area. I can't honestly. I wouldn't name drop anyway, but I can't remember who it was. They said that they had been keeping their eye on Unioto's program for a while, and that Newton Hoops was only playing quarterback because his dad was the coach, right? And then he goes out and breaks the single-season passing touchdown record. Yeah. How cool is that? That's not the reason he's playing quarterback. Right. Newton Hoops can play quarterback at any school in our area or in our coverage area. When you talk about SOSA, that's the player I'm picking. I just mentioned it. He broke the single-season touchdown record at Unioto. He's got a bevy of options. You mentioned Matt Griffin. That's a man among boys running the football. Maddox Fox is great when he can get open, and he's usually open. So Blake Hoops is great, because they've got that brother-brother connection. You mentioned it, John. He's taken such a step from last year to this year. I can remember watching him last year, and it's like, maybe he's not ready for the big time just yet. Now, when you watch Newton Hoops play, you're like, that's a varsity quarterback. Right. And that's because of the work and the effort that he's put in the offseason. And I talked to Matt earlier in the year, and he just eats, breathes, sleeps football, Newton Hoops. And it's shown. It shows on the football field. So if he plays well, Unioto plays well. And as I mentioned with Logan Elm earlier, and that's in any football game. If you can run the ball or you pass the ball well, it opens up that other part of the game for you. So I think Unioto has to establish the run, especially control the clock against a team like Massey. But if they can pass the ball against a Clinton Massey team that maybe has some holes here and there in their pass defense, they've got a shot. And Newton Hoops is the key to that puzzle.
Yeah, he he threw 5 touchdowns last year, 24 this year.
Mm-hmm.
He was 51.8% completion percentage last year, and up to 66% this year.
And the numbers, they don't lie.
Yeah.
I mean, Maddox Fox, this just Friday, right, broke the single season career.
24.
Or the single season. Okay.
It's
Single
about,
season,
it's about
he's
every
got-
single
yeah.
game.
Well, right.
single
If you're
season,
looking for a receiving
all
record, it's
time.
Maddox Fox
Yeah.
and Yoda. But that's the tip to the cap to the quarterbacks.
Yeah.
I know, at least for mine, I picked Jace Hurd. I mean, and these are through 9 games because they weren't updated when I did them. But through 9 games, had 1,264 yards, 9 rushing touchdowns, and also had 13 catches for 82 yards. You look at this offense and you look at their record. You have Wyatt Crabtree, you have both of the Kellys, you have Hurd, and that's just naming kind of the main offensive skilled guys. I mean, this is a team that has a lot of talent, and I think if Hurd, and obviously it's not going to be easy going up against Cincinnati, Wyoming, but I think if Jace Hurd can get going, their offense should be pretty solid, and it opens up if you can establish a run game, it opens up a lot more in the passing game. So I think Jace Hurd will play an enormous, and I think this is kind of obvious when I'm saying that. I think Jace Hurd will play an enormous impact for the Tigers in their Week 11 matchup.
Maybe it's a tiny bit obvious, but nonetheless, it doesn't make it any less true or anything like that.
Right.
Well, if you're talking high school, you usually need to go with the obvious because that's going to be your big hole or big player, and there's a reason why they're that big time player because he's not the tallest, Hurd isn't, but man, he's physical, he runs hard. He's a stud.
Yeah, 100%. I'm gonna stay with Vinton County on this one. I know it seems like I'm driving the Vinton County bandwagon this whole show, but that's okay. I'm gonna go with Parker Schomburn. So he stepped in under center when Isaac Mullihan went down. He's also one of the starting linebackers as well. So he's double dipping on both sides. So him just staying healthy. That'll be just a huge factor in itself. Playing all those snaps, processing all that information, especially having only 2 games under center to kind of get acclimated with how the offense runs, making the right reads, understanding defensive formations, making your checks, all of these type of things. If during their game against Columbus East, if he can complete a couple passes, just to, a couple pop passes, just to keep East's defense, honest, spread them out a little bit. That can be, a huge factor. Parker Schomburn will be a deciding factor. He may not be the factor, but he will be a huge deciding factor at whether the Vikings see Week 12 or they stop at Week 11 again.
You know what that reminds me of is when Chillicothe made the playoffs a couple of years back, and Nate Rosenbauer was their quarterback. Remember, he gets injured. Brandon Moffmer has to step in and play. I believe it was Dublin Scioto or somebody like that. I want to say it was St. Francis de Sales. And we know how good Brandon Moffmer was. So Mullihan's a senior. Parker's coming back next year.
Yeah, Parker's on.
Is it
Parker's
the same
only a sophomore?
The same career, and I think Moffmer was too. Is it could we see that same career trajectory?
I wouldn't say the same career trajectory. Moffmer's a better athlete than than Schomburn is, but I see the comparisons that you're making with just a guy coming in little experience but can still make a huge impact. I don't know if we'll see quite that.
Moffmer was a dual threat.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't think being a dual threat. I mean, it can work with Vinton County's offense. Don't get me wrong, because they like to run. And Schomburn's he's a bigger kid. He's about 6'1", about 200 205 pounds. He's a big kid, not afraid of contact. Obviously, you can't be afraid of contact if you're going to play linebacker. You relish the contact. So he can deliver a hit, but he can take a hit as well. So it can work on both sides of the coin. It's just a matter of him just staying healthy and continuing to make the right reads.
For me, I'm going back to Uniota, and this is kind of going, not really off the radar, but going a little deeper. I went with Cody Tuttle, linebacker, running back for the Shermans. One of the league leaders in the SVC in tackles, and doesn't play a whole lot after, typically after, kind of like with Zane Trace, doesn't play a lot in the third quarter in a lot of the league games, but he's been a 3-year starter. He is a he's a ball hawk, does a really good job, completing tackles too. Because there's a lot of kids that don't make hits,
Right.
but he may not make the biggest hits, but he's going to finish the tackles. And playing a team like Clinton Massey that's going to run, a guy on the second level, like a Cody Tuttle, mix in a David Long, who's a freshman who's been a stud.
I tell you what,
Yeah.
I was over there the other day, and I've talked to Coach Ford
Yeah.
a little bit, and he's disappointed that he wasn't able to get David Long
Yeah.
as a JV quarterback. I
Yeah.
can't remember the exact stats, but said he was just a phenomenal middle school quarterback. But unfortunately, I guess not unfortunately, but has to step up and play defense for varsity. So obviously not going to play JV quarterback. But I was just watching him throw in warm-ups, and I'm like, this kid's got to be at least a junior. And I looked at the thing, and he's a freshman. And but what I wanted to say was going back to Tuttle. I remember the game we did at Paint Valley. I can't remember if it was a rush or if it was like a screen pass, but had a 41-yard touchdown erased, and then a little bit later he had like a 60-yard pick six taken off from penalties as well. So, I don't know how many touchdowns. I'd say he probably has 2, 3, 4 touchdowns on the season, but
he had two taken off the board
right
on like back-to-back possessions. So he's a guy, he can catch the ball in the backfield. He's typically a lead blocker for them, but does a good job running the ball when he does get chances to run it. But really makes a lot of stuff happen. They need him. David Long, like I mentioned. Long had actually stepped in for Connor Dollison, who's a junior, who got hurt in the first week against Fenton County. But he's made it back. He actually had a sack against Westfall the other day, so that could be a big one to come back for them. Ethan Summers, another one. They need those linebackers to play really well. Derek, you mentioned Nolan Fox earlier, Andrew Griffin, KB Perkins is another one. They need those defensive ends to be really good if they're going to make any run. And it's a full team effort.
It's full family.
Yeah, full family.
Full family.
All of the brothers and that you've got on that team, and I think they're going to need Tuttle and make a big time statement on Friday.
I know we did a story on that.
Yeah.
I can't remember how many was it, or how many sets was it? 5?
I think it was 6.
6.
Well, there's 6 sets. Let's see. There's 5 sets of 2,
Unioda,
and then a set of triplets. So
Yeah.
13 altogether. I believe,
because
something like that.
because you have the Zickafoos trio.
Yeah,
that are freshmen.
And they're going to be athletes. So,
Yeah.
Uniota's football program is already on an upward trajectory. It's not going anywhere anytime soon.
Yeah, because also with the Griffins, there's 3 because Ben is a
Oh, that's right.
He's
yes,
a sophomore, and
it might have been 5 with
and he's a monster.
And the thing is even before this, I mean, the amount of twins and brothers that have come through Unioda, it's kind of incredible actually. Like there's not really they're not dispersed evenly throughout the area. They just all go to Unioda.
Yeah.
Do we have any concluding statements about the Division IV matchups, or anything you want to get off your chest, and just to kind of wrap up our thoughts on these matchups?
Well, I think when you look at the matchups, we were covering Waverly, Logan Elm, Gallia, Vinton County, even if you want to kind of throw them into that loop. The teams I just mentioned have long playoff histories. Vinton County maybe is the outlier of that group, but they've been there. Unioda really is kind of new to this. It's what they play Hillsborough two years ago, got their first ever playoff win. That was in the COVID year.
Another one, baby.
And so I don't know if we count that as in the COVID year.
Yeah,
still a playoff win.
It's a postseason win.
Was there 16 in that tournament, or was it everybody?
Everybody.
Everyone
It still counts. I don't know why.
Well, not everybody made it. But
not everyone wanted to. That's
right.
why
everybody
we'll
wanted to.
We'll talk about Hillsborough or Huntington later, because Huntington was one that was they opted out so they could play
somebody else.
They played more games.
I know we played a game after.
Yeah.
Well, actually, we tried to play it, and then we played it the next day because there was like a tornado or something in Madison playing.
Yeah, was that Madison playing?
Yeah.
You guys went up there and won like 40 to
no. We did not win.
Was that not
we
it?
lost in like triple overtime or something.
64.
It made me very happy that we didn't. Well, I wasn't there to cover
was there.
Well, it was supposed to be on a Friday, and then it got moved to a Saturday.
I saw the final. I'm like, thank goodness.
It was such a long, cold night.
Oh, God. I can't imagine.
Well, but the point being is that Unioda, they do have a playoff win under their belts, but you have to feel, if you're them, this is that first, especially with
I
this
get it, right.
group,
Yeah.
this first real taste of playoff football, and you're going to get a taste of it with Clinton Massey,
Well,
coming to town.
This is the highest. This is the best seed they've
First
ever had.
home, or well, never mind. I guess.
Yeah.
Well, but first earned, I think, in a playoffs in the traditional
in the
point sense,
computer,
right?
because I don't want to say earned because I mean they were.
Yeah, we earned it.
Yeah.
5 and or whatever we were. 4 and 3
I mean, a win's a win.
Yeah. Oh, a win is absolutely a win.
But like I said, I think in a traditional point sense,
yes,
right. Yeah.
You're like, hey, we got in.
Mm-hmm.
But on the other side of that coin is we got to play Clinton Massey.
Yeah.
Shock the world.
Yeah.
Why not? I mean, you're at home. You're not expected to win. As you said, the Fantastic 50. You're an underdog at home. Take that as motivation, and hopefully, we can see some of our teams, go further into the playoffs. But I really do think that when you look at the playoff matchups, we've got a really good shot at 3 or even 4. If we get an upset there, 3 teams moving on to week 12.
Yeah, I like the, either Logan Elm or Benton County making it to week 13. I think either one has a pretty decent chance. I think if Gallia can win, I think they'll have a chance to get to week 13. And then that's when you play a St. Clairsville. But honestly,
that's beating Licking Valley.
I would say, but honestly, that's better than playing Steubenville.
True.
So it's.
I haven't looked exactly at the bracket. I just pulled the seedings. Is there a week that, say, the trio of Gallia, Logan Elm, or Unioda would be able to play each other if they continue to advance?
Gallia and
I know I could
Gallia
figure it
and
out.
Logan Elm would have to be a regional final.
Right.
Okay, so it'd be a little bit down
and
the
then
road.
Unioda's in the other. Unioda and Unioda and Waverly are the two that have to go to the west or the southwest.
Okay.
Fine.
Yeah, so like with these Waverly teams that they've had that have been so stacked, if they're in Region 15 the last couple of years, maybe they're making a deeper run, since they've made pretty good runs anyway. But where you're facing teams that are more like in our area, but unfortunately the way the regions are done, Union and Waverly go west. Everyone else stay in the southeast.
Brock, I got a question for you. You've seen
ahead.
Benton County more than all of us.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to play the what-if game, but if Mullahan's there, I mean, one, it's probably the higher seed.
Yeah.
But how big of a part of their offense was Mullahan?
So it took Mullahan a few games just to fully understand what Vinton County wanted to do, and I mean even the transition for him coming from Wilson as well. So kind of just learning the offense, learning the guys, understanding the system itself. It took him a few games to get it going, and then I can't remember which game it was, but he had 103 yards and I think 5 rushing touchdowns that night, and I mean that was kind of the game that even I said to myself, I said, okay. He's gotten it going now. He's figured it out, and it took 3 or 4 games to do so, but now Vinton County's starting to get on the roll, and just losing him in that Warren game. I mean, losing that game was a huge bump in the road, but losing him was I mean it was crucial. So, I mean he's not only probably their best athlete, but he brought the dynamic that they didn't have as much last year with his ability to throw the ball down the field. So it wasn't something that they primarily, prioritized, but it was something that they had in their arsenal a little bit more with Mohan as opposed to last year. Losing him it was a really big deal, but and I mean
I'm sure he's their biggest fan on the
Oh,
sidelines.
100%. If Molahan plays the game against Nelsonville, Vinton County wins.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Vinton County, they still had a great chance to win. Honestly, it was just an extra point that they missed, I believe, and that was the difference, losing 21-20. I mean, both their losses, losing.
They had 2 games.
Yeah, they had 2. Lost to Rock Hill in overtime on a missed field goal as well, and then losing to Nelsonville, losing the TVC title in the process on a missed field goal as well. So Molahan makes a huge difference, but I still believe they're still in a really, really great spot moving forward.
And that is all we have for Regions 15 and 16. You're watching the Horizon Football Playoff Preview Show right here on Southern Ohio Sports Authority, presented by OhioHealth. We'll be back in a moment.
This is big. Horizon's fiber internet is ready. Let them get you hooked up and power your Wi-Fi network with the speed and reliability that only a 100% fiber network can do. Horizon is ready to help you do what you do better, with real people, a reliable connection, and great customer service. Sign up today for as low as $40.95 a month, plus no contracts.
First day doing it solo. And 2 years since starting cancer treatment at OhioHealth.
Hey, Mike Glockner here from the Glockner family of dealerships. Want to wish all the fall sports athletes a very safe and successful year. Good luck.
This is big. Horizon's fiber internet is ready. Let them get you hooked up and power your Wi-Fi network with the speed and reliability that only a 100% fiber network can do. Horizon is ready to help you do what you do better, with real people, a reliable connection, and great customer service. Sign up today for as low as $40.95 a month, plus no contracts and no data caps. Call 740-772-8331 or visit horizonconnects.com/Chillicothe to sign up today.
If there's not a Par Mar store near you now, there will be soon. That's the slogan, and that's what we believe at Par Mar stores. From groceries to gas and all the other stuff you need, Par Mar has it. Download the Par Mar app for even more savings, and don't forget the Par Mar rewards card too. We also believe in being a big part of your community, so look for us at the ball game or wherever you are. Shop us today, like us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and remember, if there's not a Par Mar store near you now, there will be soon.
This broadcast is brought to you in part by Willie & Son Trucking. Willie & Son Trucking has been a proud supporter of local student athletes, coaches, and athletic programs throughout its history. Be sure to look out for the Shack Athlete of the Week presented by Willie & Son Trucking each week at SOSAOhio.com.
And welcome back to the Horizon Football Tournament Playoff Preview Show here on Southern Ohio
It's a
Sports
mouthful.
Authority.
Hey, you didn't say shoe that time.
Yeah, I didn't say shoe.
It is a mouthful to say, so hey.
I was thinking ahead of myself there. We're moments away from a call with the coach of the Waverly Tigers, Coach Chris Crabtree, but I believe we're having slight issues getting him on the line. So we'll just preface that a little bit, talking about the Tigers a little more, talking about their season up to this point. And then hopefully by that time we're able to get in contact with Coach Crabtree.
One of the reasons they got in was week one.
Mm-hmm.
They had a great comeback against Miami Trace. Scored
down what in that game?
They were down.
I want to say
They were down
20 to nothing.
They were down 20 to nothing, and then I think 28-7 at one point.
Yeah.
It was. Then they come back and win 42-39. So just showing, that ability to make a comeback. Then they go up to Johnstown, and they're able to knock them off. Before they had, a tough spell of Uniota, Chillicothe, Johnson Central, and Portsmouth West. Before going to Valley in a game that I think we thought was going to be close, and it's 60-7.
We try to each week. We try to send reporters out to games that we think are going to be good games or the best games that week. We send a reporter to that game, we don't get me wrong. Coach Crabtree does a great job, and Coach Nolan Crabtree, I should say, does a great job with Valley. And they've got athletes, on the field. And I think Arnett got hurt. George Arnett, their quarterback, either got hurt or he went out of the game that night. And then Carter Nickel, came in and had to finish. But Waverly gets that big win, and it turns everything around. So yeah.
And I believe now we have Coach Chris Crabtree on the line tonight. How you doing, Coach?
Good, guys. How you guys doing?
Oh, we're
We're
here.
all doing pretty good.
Yeah.
Obviously, you guys finished the year with a 35-0 win over Oak Hill on senior night. You're able to claim the 16th seed. I guess what I'm going to ask is, what is the current morale of the locker room heading into this matchup? And also, what are your thoughts with the matchup with Cincinnati, Wyoming?
Well, it's always good to go be able to play Week 11, and we had a tough season early on, went through a rough patch, but I think we've gotten better as from week to week, and getting in at 16, obviously you get to go play the top seed, and we've kind of been familiar with teams in that region. We've taken some of the best in that region, and so here we are again. So ultimately, we can't control who we play. We just got to go out and prepare the best we can, and go give it a heck of a shot.
Coach, earlier in the show, we talked about Jace Hurd and his ability, to really take over games when the football's in his hands. He started out hot. He was our September Athlete of the Month, and he stayed hot throughout the year. With last year's losses, of a great senior class, instantly this year, Jace Hurd comes in and makes an immediate impact. How important, or how key was he at the beginning of the season for you guys to find a rhythm offensively?
Well, again, I think you kind of hit the nail on the head there. He definitely was our rhythm because coming in with a young quarterback, it's not had any varsity experience, and with really a young group of receivers, we felt like we wanted to be able to establish a run. We wanted to be able to rely on that, and definitely, he kind of set the tone early.
Coach, over the past 3 seasons, you've replaced Hayden Shanks, who I mean was one of the best, in Waverly history. Then you had Wade Futhy, who topped what Hayden Shanks did, and
right.
and just picked up where things left off, and now I believe it's Mason Kelly, under center for you guys. How have you just seen just the progression that he's made over the season, and just the leaps and bounds that he's made to help get you guys to Week 11?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I definitely want to give our quarterback coach, offensive coordinator, Coach Knight, a lot of credit because he's been had a hand in all three of those guys and it really developed them. And Mason worked hard in the off season, but again, not having that experience, it's just different. And from the beginning of the summer until now, he's gotten far more comfortable. And again, having some young receivers this year. Those guys have finally, I think they've finally found a rhythm, someone he can kind of count on. He's got a couple guys he can really count on now. And that's just been, a big plus. And, again, he's threw for, just a little under 2,000 yards this year and 20-some touchdowns. So, that's pretty daggone good in all reality, with him coming in at having, no experience and just being a sophomore.
Yeah, Coach, how nice is it to, have that, the brother quarterback wide receiver connection again this year after you had it last year?
Yeah, I mean, that's been really cool. Again, Hudson's another guy that, we really didn't have to count on him a whole lot. He just was able to make some plays here and there and played a lot of defense for us. And again, coming in the season, he didn't have that experience really as being the main guy, kind of like what, Wade had with Will. So it's been really nice. And again, I'm just happy for Hudson to be able to kind of finish his senior year here at Waverly and then also have his brother throw it to him. So it's just a neat thing overall.
Coach, I got one last question for you. If anybody's ever watched you guys play, before the game starts, you walk out of the locker room, the entire team kneels, and they say a prayer and a chant. Can you talk about that process? One, what it means to you guys each game, because that kind of gets you guys up and hyped. And then when did that start? How did that tradition start?
Yeah, actually, I got to give Coach Saint a lot of credit for that. He originally was from Portsmouth, Notre Dame area, and we kind of wanted to develop some traditions. We like singing the fight song after the end of the game and stuff like that, and that's just something that he asked if he could do that, kind of come up with the football player's prayer. And, we kind of take the theme of the week or what we've talked about in our Culture Thursdays and we kind of implement that into the beginning, and then he goes into the prayer. And again, the goal is just to kind of get everybody lathered up and excited. And the kids, the first time we ever did that, they just completely bought in, and that's just something that's I think they all look forward to as we get going into the game. And then with our cheerleaders, they get to sign up and we get the tunnel, and it's just a good way to get really excited and fired up coming out. So that's a big thing we do, and I'm very happy that we started it.
I guess we asked Coach 4 or 5 questions, and we have not asked him about who he's going to play this week, right? Trip to Cincinnati, Wyoming. We're kind of familiar with him in our coverage area. We had talked about it on the show a couple weeks back, or a couple years back, I should say. Unioto goes there. So we've been to Wyoming. We've been to the school. You talk about tradition, and Cincinnati, Wyoming has a playoff tradition. A tall task, a tough task, but not an impossible task. What do you guys have to do well on Friday to move on to Week 12?
Well, it's going to come down to really, we can't allow the explosive plays. Obviously they have a very good running back, C.J. Hester, and they're going to be a well-coached, disciplined team. We're going to have to go out and play our best football. Defensively, we're going to have to make them earn it. We can't give up this, 1-2 series plays, and again, offensively, we're going to have to be able to move the ball, throw the ball, spread them horizontally and vertically, just try to use our tempo, to our advantage a little bit. But yeah, going into this thing, obviously no one's going to give us much of a chance. But it's been said before, really the only people that matters is the people that's in that locker room, if they believe in each other and trust each other. And that's all we kind of harp on all year, and every game is, try to be 1-0 each week. And again, you go play for each other and go out and give your best, and whatever happens, happens. And that's all we can ask of those guys.
Well, Coach, we sure do appreciate it. Waverly going to Cincinnati, Wyoming in Week 11. Good luck. Represent Southern Ohio well, and we will talk at you soon.
Okay. Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
Yep. Good luck, Coach.
Thanks, Coach.
Thank you.
So, quick question. Obviously, Chris Crabtree with Waverly. I know there was another Crabtree
Nolan
for Northwest, I believe.
Yes.
Bill Crabtree.
And I think there was one before him named Crabtree as well.
I believe so. I think it was. I believe it was at Valley.
That was at Valley. It was Darren.
Yeah.
Yeah, Darren.
So, but there is still one at Northwest, correct?
Yeah, there's
so
Darren.
Are they all related?
I don't know about that. We should ask Chris that.
Well, I was going to.
I'm sorry.
I didn't. Well, I was going to, but I didn't. I didn't know if he if maybe he dislikes them. And maybe they're not related, and he makes offense to that.
I don't think he would say no. Don't talk to me about Nolan Crabtree. No, I'm not sure. I'm sure it's probably
just remember
distantly
when we did the Northwest at Valley game. I'm looking at the staff, and I'm seeing Crabtree on both sides, and I'm seeing for Valley, Crabtree replaces Crabtree, and I know there's a Crabtree at Waverly, so.
And they're all good coaches.
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
And we're good athletes.
Mm-hmm.
So with that, that's all we have for Division 4. We'll move on now to Division 5, Regions 19 and 20. We got a ton of matchups in there, mainly in 19. The only Region 20 game we have is Zane Trace and Clark Montessori, I believe. So a majority of those are in Region 19. We'll start this division the same way we started the last one. Any first-round games you guys are eyeballing and excited to see in Week 11?
If Montessori wouldn't have won last night, it would have been Waynesville against Zane Trace, which for a 3-7 team, that might have been a pretty decent break for Zane Trace to avoid them, because Waynesville beat Clinton Massey in Week 1. So that was maybe the best 3-7 team in the state. I went with West Muskingum at Fairland. I don't really think.
Stole my thunder, man.
Oh, well, you
both can talk about it.
You probably have more about it than I do. So, but I was just going to say, I don't really see a lot of these games being overly competitive. Yeah. That's probably the most competitive game. I do think that Steeler Leap, which is the best name in Southeast Ohio, and the Dragons will advance to, not the most enviable matchup with Harvest Prep in Week 12. But I think that'll be a good game. That's a fun. If that was a color rush matchup on NFL,
no, it's green. What is West Muskingum like? Orange or something?
They're blue and gold. maybe yellow.
Royal blue.
Chargers.
Yeah, it's
Like the Chargers kind of.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so if they went with their
A
yellow,
little off script here.
I know we went.
oh
really
no,
off
if
script.
you want to go color rush, that's Barnesville.
Oh.
I
That's true. I'll give you
Barnesville
that.
came.
Who, by the way, is in Region 19.
Yes. I'm going to talk about them in a minute. But Barnesville came down here to for the region in baseball a few years ago, and they had Christmas tree color pants and
What, like red pants with green pinstripes? or
yeah,
something?
it was.
Gosh.
Oof,
It was strange.
yeah,
It was strange.
they're a good football team, but
They played Minford in the same uniforms, and I remember I was like, I don't know what's going on here, but I suddenly feel like it should be snowing or something.
right, yeah. So I think that for me, that's my first round matchup. I'm
Yeah,
looking for.
and I'm going to agree with you. I actually had that as my upset alert
Ooh,
for that one. Fairland, obviously a 14-13 win in week 1 over a Portsmouth West team that never lost a game after that. Won their first. We're talking to their coach later on in the show. So that was a big time win for it, and obviously played a big role, most likely in that 7th seed. One thing about West Muskingum, though, that Joe Ido, I looked up and found is 6 of their 8 wins were against teams with 2 or less wins. So that's just kind of something to look at. But you talk about that 14-13 win against Portsmouth West. You also have a 34-0 loss against Portsmouth. But they also picked up a win against Colgrove, who I think they're in Division.
they're in Division 6. Yeah.
So
by the way, your boy who won the pick'em once again.
I was gonna bring that up.
Yeah.
Were
Once
you
again.
gonna bring that up?
yeah,
I think
Thank you
I think
for that.
Derek added wrong.
Yeah, but
I think he added wrong.
one of the teams that I missed quite often was Fairland. So
It's tough.
yeah. So with me saying that I think they're going to win, hopefully that's not putting a jinx on them.
Well, the OVC as a whole was a pretty competitive.
Yeah.
I mean, it seems like they'll beat them, they'll beat them, they'll beat them, and that's just kind of how the whole season went in that conference. That's kind of how we'll talk later about the SOC one. That's kind of a little bit. The records were a little different between those two conferences, but the competition was the same.
You mentioned the OVC, and I'm going to stick in the OVC. My first round game is a Portsmouth at Union local. I stole Brock's
Stole
thunder
my
now.
thunder.
The Jets.
The Jets, who won today, beat the Broncos, 5-2 Jets. These Jets are 5-5 with a forfeit to their name to the Columbus Crusaders the first week of the season. But after they forfeit that game, they go 4-0, they go 5-0, and then lose their next 4. So you talk about putting up points. Portsmouth can do that in a hurry. Tyler Duncan there, we saw him early in the year. We saw him in midseason. He can fling it. You have Reed Pendleton. You have Nolan Highland. And they're so fast. They've got speed that if you let them get the edge, it's a house call. So you mentioned Colgrove earlier. That game was an absolute barn burner this past year, or this past season. And I think they can go down to Union local. I think a lot of the Portsmouth fans are like, why are we traveling? We gotta. Why do we have to go there?
Possibly.
One of those 9-8 matchups. It gets weird though, but I think it's a winnable game. The only thing that I would say about Union local is that the teams that they've lost to are good. So Barnesville, as you just mentioned, 10-0. That was beat Union local by 3. So in the last week of the season.
With Union local though, once they had to forfeit that game, that's when that losing started, because they didn't forfeit that game initially.
Oh, okay.
I didn't know that. It ended up because Gridiron Glory, which is shout out to OU. They covered one of their games, and they said they started off the week 6-0. And now they're 5-2. So it was one of those. But since then they haven't won. So I think they're definitely ripe for the picking.
Yeah, so kind of just piggyback off Derek's point. Union local, they've lost 4 straight, but as you mentioned, it's been to Barnesville, Bel Air, St. Clairsville, and Cambridge. Well, all those teams are in the playoffs. They've all won 6 games or more. So even though you're on a 4-game losing streak, it's not as if you're losing to teams that are 3-7, 4-6, something like that. You're playing against top tier competition. So while you would prefer not to have the losing streak, it's also kind of a necessary evil just to prepare yourself for a Week 11 game, which in a way you kind of get lucky hosting. Now on the opposite opposite side of the coin for Portsmouth, they've won 3 of the last 4. To end the season. Taking the loss to Ironton in the fashion they did, I'm sure that probably deflated them just a little bit. But you still got the playoff game, and I think one thing that helps is that they went on the road last year and beat Zane Trace in the playoff game. And some of those kids are back as well. So you have that experience that you can play off of. You still have some momentum being that you ended the season fairly strong. You still gave yourself a chance to win a tough OVC, as we've mentioned. So whoever wins the game, I don't think it's going to be a shock because it's an 8-9 matchup. But I'm going to go with Portsmouth to win that one.
Well, and I'll say this: they've had 2 losses. They're 6-4. They've had 2 losses that are bad, if you would. Ironton, Portsmouth West.
Yeah.
Other than that, they play Spring Valley, West Virginia. It was a good program. They were in that game throughout the entirety of the game. Lost by 11, and then they get beat by Gallia on a field goal as time expired, 36-34.
Yeah.
So you could absolutely be looking at an 8-2 Portsmouth Trojan football team here. If the ball bounces their ways a couple times. So, but yeah, I mean, I do think they have a shot to go down and get into Week 12.
Some other games on the slate for Division 5. The number 1 seeded Ironton. Actually, I don't even know what their mascot is.
Fighting Tigers.
The Fighting
The
Tigers.
Fighting Tiger, not the Tigers.
Yeah.
Taking on
Go Tigers.
the 16th seeded Minford Falcons. We also have the 5th seeded Portsmouth West Senators hosting the 12th seeded Northwest Mohawks. I know we're talking to their coach, not Northwest coach, Portsmouth West coach here in a little bit. And also Barnesville is taking on Piketon. Obviously, we already mentioned Zane Trace and Clark Montessori. Any keys for any of those teams to win those games? Or maybe any lower-seeded teams with the possibility of winning any of those games?
My upset alert is actually the Christmas trees or the Shamrocks of Barnesville. Like when I looked up,
I absolutely think they should be renaming themselves.
When I looked up their mascot, I was very thrown off by them being the Shamrocks, like because of the red. Just throws it off.
Dublin Scioto has a shamrock. They're the Fighting Irish, right?
Yeah.
But,
yeah. So, I'm going with my SEC bias. I'm going to say Piketon. Piketon, it would be a major upset. They're listed as like a 30-point dog on Fantastic 50, but they're on a hot streak. They started off 2-0, lost 4 straight to 4 really good teams, and then they've won 4 straight since. They have gotten some weapons back. Jaden Thacker, who was their starting running back last year, is back after he came back in Week 9. Had 75 yards rushing on Friday. Alan Austin, who is a monster athlete, started the year at quarterback, got hurt, and then Luke Gullion stepped in for them.
It's happening again.
Yeah,
another Gullion. Start terrorizing everybody.
Yes, with Thacker and Austin, that's kind of the thunder to the lightning that Buddy Wilson gives, who tied a state record, one that will never be broken, of a 99-yard touchdown run.
I'm not going to speed past. I get the thunder to the lightning with the red streaks. I see what you did there.
Yeah.
Just a little extra nugget in there.
It's debatable, but they have experienced, very hungry offensive line. The Jenkins brothers, Trey and Alex, Dawson Montgomery, Gabe Lamerson, all guys back from last year that started for that team that made it to Week 12. It would be a major upset, but if a team's going to do it, it's a team that is as hungry and experienced as they are. Even though they lost a lot from last year, they still have a lot of winning tradition to live up to, and they're not going to go up. They're not going to be scared of Barnesville.
So, covered that game. Ironton and Minford, obviously a very spread out game. The 1 seed versus the 16th seed, both in our coverage area. Any thoughts on that matchup? Or any possible outcomes of that matchup for either Minford or maybe as the more expected Ironton?
I think that, when you look at that matchup, Ironton obviously has the experience factor, where Minford has a freshman quarterback that does get better every game out with Peyton Cotto. I mean, he's going to be a good one. I don't think, though, that he's going to beat Ironton in Week 11, especially this Ironton team. They're on. You talk about a roll. They're on an absolute roll. Almost slipped up, as we mentioned, against Gallia Academy there. But other than that game, I mean, this team has just been. I mean, how do you stop?
They're
them?
tested.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, they've played good competition. Obviously, we mentioned the OVC being a good conference play-in. You know, the first game of the season they beat Wheelersburg 12-3. Since then, they've put up 29 against Gallia, but basically 30 or more points in the next 9. So weapons everywhere. Amari Felder, Jack Keys in the backfield. Ty Perkins is, I don't know if you guys saw that one-handed grab he made this past week against Portsmouth, but just a phenomenal athlete. Then Landon Wilson, who's a scat back, can catch the ball, can run the ball, can do whatever. And, oh, by the way, Tayden Carpenter, who is a really good quarterback and understands how to play the position. We're not even mentioning, I believe it's Trevor Carter. I mean, we're not even mentioning,
We're not mentioning a Division I player.
Yeah, I mean, but I'm saying you're not. That's just the tip of the iceberg for.
But
this
to be
team,
fair, we did mention like 4 other ones.
Yeah, and that's
to be fair,
and that's what I mean. You put this on paper. This team absolutely should win a regional title.
Yeah.
I don't think that's too bold of a statement. I'm not saying they will. I'm just saying on paper, when you look at them matched up, they should absolutely win the region.
I will say this about Ironton. I think this is the first time in a couple of years where I've kind of looked at them and I said they kind of look more beatable this year. I mean, when you were down 26-14 to Jackson, you made your comeback, and then you had a comfortable lead against Gallia, and then you let them come back as well. Now you finished strong against Portsmouth. Great job. You won the OVC. The first thing on their list was checked off, winning the conference. Now you have to go into the playoffs, and all of a sudden, maybe those demons from last year's loss to Wheelersburg, maybe they creep in the back of your mind like, okay, we can't make this mistake. Maybe they overcorrect a couple things, but it leads to more problems as well. I mean, so I would have said the same thing about Ironton last year. They should have won the region. Yeah.
And then they didn't, And of course, Wheelersburg goes and loses Harvest Prep. Which they were in that game.
They should have won
I think if Ironton gets to that game, they do win the region. Yeah. So, like you said, I think, though, that they'll exercise those demons.
Yeah.
They just can't get too cute, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
If they just play their game, go out, play Ironton football, I do think that you'll be seeing the Tigers at the state level. But and that's just because of the body of work that they put together this week.
They still have to stay healthy.
Carpenter's
got to stay healthy.
Yeah.
Yep.
And
that's the other thing. Last year, they lose by 3 to Wheelersburg.
Yeah.
Carpenter wasn't playing.
Right. That's what I mean.
Carpenter was out pretty much all of the season this year. So a much different dynamic this year.
Now, for you Wheelersburg fans, we're not saying that if Carpenter plays,
that Ironton wins. We're just
but
saying,
it's a different type. Yeah. It's a different game.
Yeah.
For sure.
I will say this for Minford. Just them making the playoffs, having only 3 seniors. I mean, this is. I'm not gonna say it's like a big deal for them, but it's a great step in getting back to where they once were.
Yeah, you get one more week of practice.
Yeah,
that's huge.
And right before we go on break here shortly, John, as a coach, what does that week do for an experience factor headed into next year?
Well, with only 3 seniors, you get used to getting prepared for a playoff matchup. And it's huge because you can't replace that week.
All right, so I believe after this we're going to have a coach call with the Portsmouth West head coach Todd Gilliland. We'll be back in a moment. You're watching the Horizon Football Playoff Preview Show right here on Southern Ohio Sports Authority, presented by OhioHealth. We'll be back in a moment.
Carlo. Carlos. First time setting foot inside a tattoo shop. Second picture his daughter has posted to her story. Third check on his bucket list. And 4 years of cancer-free checkups at OhioHealth.
This broadcast is brought to you in part by Willie & Son Trucking. Willie and Son Trucking has been a proud supporter of local student athletes, coaches, and athletic programs throughout its history. Be sure to look out for the Shack Athlete of the Week presented by Willie and Son Trucking each week at SOSAOhio.com.
Hey, Mike Glockner here from the Glockner family of dealerships. Want to wish all the fall sports athletes a very safe and successful year. Good luck.
This is big. Horizon's fiber internet is ready. Let them get you hooked up and power your Wi-Fi network with the speed and reliability that only a 100% fiber network can do. Horizon is ready to help you do what you do better, with real people, a reliable connection, and great customer service. Sign up today for as low as $40.95 a month, plus no contracts and no data caps. Call 740-772-8331 or visit horizonconnects.com/Chillicothe to sign up today.
If there's not a Par Mar store near you now, there will be soon. That's the slogan, and that's what we believe at Par Mar stores. From groceries to gas and all the other stuff you need, Par Mar has it. Download the Par Mar app for even more savings, and don't forget the Par Mar rewards card too. We also believe in being a big part of your community, so look for us at the ball game or wherever you are. Shop us today, like us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and remember, if there's not a Par Mar store near you now, there will be soon.
We welcome you back into the Horizon Football Playoff Preview Show here on Southern Ohio Sports Authority, presented by OhioHealth. We have head coach Todd Gilliland of the Portsmouth West Senators on call. Coach, how are we doing tonight?
Oh, great. How are you guys doing?
Well, I know the Bengals won, so these two guys over here
pretty
are
happy.
pretty good.
Very happy.
Yeah,
it's going to be a good week when the Bengals win.
Right. I think me and Bruce are
the Bears haven't lost yet. So
there you go. There you go. Well, I tell you who did win this week, guys, was the Portsmouth West Senators, and what a win it was, Coach. Just such a fun game to cover for me. Not just because of the win, just because of what it meant to your kids, what it meant to your program. We talked a little bit after you guys did put away that 14-7 victory over Wheelersburg, about the magnitude of that win. Obviously, it gets you, a higher playoff position. It gets you an SOC2 title, and it gets you more. Maybe the most important thing is confidence heading into a playoff run. What's it feel like? This week so far. To know what your kids just accomplished, but what's ahead.
It's been like you said, a really exciting weekend for our community in general. All the texts and messages and phone calls that I've got, our assistant coaches have gotten, all of our players. It's been really, really exciting. It was like you said, it was a big win. It was a big win for our community because it had been a while, and so it's something I think that we can build on as a community. Our younger groups have been doing really well. Our junior high was undefeated this year. Our youth league's been playing really well. And I think this is kind of one of those wins that can help springboard just our program, back to where we want it to be. We've been close several times, in different years, since I've been there as an assistant and now as head coach, and we finally were able to get over the top. And I just think now that it's something we can build on. We build on it into the playoffs, and take a win like that into the off season, in the weight room, and it's such a boost, I think, for the program that I think we're going to see a lot of good come from it.
I've got one last question for you, Coach, and I'll hand it over to these guys. I was so impressed with Ryan Sissel on Friday. I told you after the game, he's a man among boys. To tackle him, you have to wrap up his legs. If you're going to hit that kid high, he's not going to the ground. If you're not going to wrap up, he's not going to the ground. But I was more impressed by him after the game when he, gave every bit of credit to his offensive line. I love kids like that, especially ones that are so successful as Ryan. Ryan goes on a game day visit, by the way, yesterday to Ohio State. I don't know if any of you guys knew that.
Did not know that.
But, he's definitely a kid that can play at the next level, but he gets it. He talked about his offensive line. One, Coach, how good is that offensive line, and how good can they be? And is that something that you try to instill in your kids is, hey, basically we, not me. Is that the mentality, around that locker room?
Well, for sure, that's something that we've preached since I've taken over, and even Coach Johnson before me, we talked about that. Um, it's about the team, and when the team has success, individuals will have success as well, and the boys have bought into it. They understand that that it's not about one individual. One individual having great stats might not necessarily mean that you have a great team. And the best thing that I like about this group is that they're friends. They're not just guys playing on a team together. They're together, hanging out after practice. Over the weekends, they're together. And they have a really true bond there. And a lot of the guys do. And when Ryan talks about his offensive line, he means it. And the offensive line would talk the same way about him, and they've worked together. And this offensive line, like you said, of each week they've just gotten better and better and better. And we had an injury to Wyatt Weghurst and had to have some guys step up. And some of the guys that have stepped in are some of the younger guys. Cade Woods had to step in at right tackle, a sophomore, playing both ways, that just had a phenomenal game, on Friday night. And our center is a 100. I think we list him at 170 pounds, but it's probably more about 165 pounds. Nickel Rat playing center as a sophomore against much bigger guys, and he's just a fighter out there. So we've got them mixed in with a couple other seniors with Jacob Cole, Jack Jordan, and Carson Horner. And they've really gelled together these past couple weeks. And there were some plays that watching on film, we just kind of sat back and was like, man, that's like clinic tape. The way that they just everyone got through their blocks and just got to where they were supposed to be and did things the right way. And so we were so excited to sit and watch film afterwards about how well they played. And I know not too many teams have been able to run the ball against Willersburg the way we did Friday.
Maybe a bit of technical difficulties with Coach Gilliland. I believe as of now we did lose the call with him.
Well, I will say he's just talking about the running game. And I mean, I'm telling you guys, Ryan Sissel just was amazing.
And I think now we have Coach. Can you hear us?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so you can go ahead and continue on with what we were talking about. It's all good.
Oh no, it's one thing I will say. I think a lot of people don't realize how big Ryan is until you get there and get to see him in person. He's a legit 220-pound tailback that's tough to tackle. He runs hard, and when he really gets his shoulder pads low, he is a load. And he's done that now. He's started for us for 4 years. And he's just continued to get better each week, and throughout the years it's just been that same thing, that work ethic that he has, and that he has that passion to be a better football player every time. And it's just he's one of those guys that everybody just loves to coach.
So, Coach, me personally, I've mentioned Mitchell Irwin, a lot in columns that I wrote. I did a 20 players watch. He was one of them as well. And one of the things I said is if he can just keep his turnovers down, because he threw 14 interceptions last year. So if he can just keep those down, this team has a real chance to do something special. And you guys did, going 9-1. Winning the SOC. Mitchell, 18 touchdowns, just 8 interceptions. How have you just seen just him just improve week by week, and especially in his decision making as well?
Mitchell has really stepped up this year, and he over the off season has done such a great job of preparing himself to play this year. He's in really good shape. He slimmed down a little bit, became quicker. That helped him moving around in the pocket, and and he's worked really hard at making correct reads, getting rid of the ball quicker. And that's really helped him, throughout the season. as a quarterback, things are going to happen from here and from time to time, and I think a couple of the interceptions have been on, he's hit as he's throwing or something like that, and causing some of those things. But overall, Mitchell has done a great job. I think he's thrown for, I don't have the stats in front of me, but somewhere right around like 1,600 yards. And you don't see a whole lot of offenses that have a 1,600-yard thrower and someone who's almost rushed for 1,500 yards. On the same offense. So Mitchell's done a great job, and I think I like about him more than anything is just the command of the offense. Whether or not it's run plays, pass plays, we've put more on him this year as some checks at the line of scrimmage and getting us into right plays, and he's done a great job of that as well.
Coach, I got one more question before I turn it over to John. I think something that gets lost in the shuffle a little bit is that you guys had 10 road games last year. You guys did not play a home game. I don't believe so. And so I mean, what was it like just finally just getting a chance to play at your home field for the first time in 2 seasons?
Yeah, it was a different season last year. Counting the playoff game last year. We on the road 11 straight weeks and at many different venues for our quote home games that we had. And throughout the season last year we kept preaching, it doesn't matter, we're playing on a football field. Once the game starts, it doesn't really matter. But after sitting back and reflecting on the season, it does matter a little bit when you just lose that atmosphere of being able to play at home, being able to be comfortable with just walking into your locker room after school and taking care of business that way. And, so, it did kind of wear on us a little bit, I think, after a while. And, finally getting back to get home, an actual play some home games this year was, I think was a big benefit to us. Like I said, the atmosphere was there. We were comfortable with where we're at. We got to play on our new turf for the first time. Last year, I think we got to practice on it once during the playoff week, and that's when it was finally finished. And so that was a very I think I played a big part in the season of being able to just have that comfort level and the excitement around the community there at that home, that where we could just be in front of them and just feel comfortable.
Yeah, and then Coach, one of the things that from when I played or coached against like Portsmouth West was the West Side pride that you guys have as a community. How huge has that been, and how much have you seen that this week, especially after you guys win the SOC and beat Wheelersburg? How nice was that to have that hometown pride?
Oh, it was great. It was all week. You were getting calls from folks in the youth league, just from at school, just someone from the community, wishing us luck, stopping into school to wish us luck, those type of things, telling us they were behind us and they believed in us. And and then as the game started, you could just turn around and look in the stands. The stadium was packed. It was the first time it had been that way in a long time, and it was just great to see. And then after the game, it was like no one wanted to leave. Everyone was down there from the third grade youth league player all the way to the person that had graduated 50 years ago was down there, congratulating the players. And it was just a lot of excitement and a lot of positive for our community. Like I said, things to build on with all the great things that we already have. And it means a lot to not only our coaching staff, but to the kids as well, to know that you have a whole community behind you.
Coach, I'll ask you one last question. We posted a picture of you on Facebook, and somebody had commented, "I didn't know that Bradley Cooper coached."
I saw somebody comment that.
I saw that.
I forget if it was
so
on Facebook
you're
or Twitter.
obviously a good football coach, but you must be good looking too to the public. How many times you gotten those references?
Every once in a while, someone will pull that out. Since I've let my hair grow out, I've got that a little bit. Like I don't necessarily see it, but some folks from time to time have mentioned that I look like that guy. I said I'm the older, out of shape version of Bradley Cooper, but I will definitely take that for sure.
Yeah, if someone else is noticing that, that's probably a good thing.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's probably
So-
a good thing. Hey, they're both winners too.
Well,
Yeah.
well, Coach, we appreciate it. Todd Gilliland West hosting Northwest on Friday. Appreciate you taking the time out of your nights, and good luck this Friday. We'll see you soon.
Hey, appreciate you guys. Thank you very much.
Absolutely.
Well, he talks about, the home crowd. There's the block at the Rock, I believe.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
Coming in, supporting their guys, gets their first SOC2 title in 18 years. 14 years.
14, yep.
Since 2008.
Yep.
Now,
Mm-hmm.
besides that, how long is it, off the top of your head, how long has it been since they beat Wheelersburg?
2011.
So
was the
snapping
last, yep.
11 and 14-year droughts. So, pretty good season. I say pretty good, an excellent
Yeah.
season for the Senators. We didn't ask him about it, but I guess we can touch a little on that game between them and Northwest. Obviously, stars on both sides. You look at Northwest, you've got guys like Wyatt Brackman. We talked a little bit about Connor Lentz and whether, I know he had an injury in, I believe, I can't remember exactly what week or who they were playing.
I want to say it was week 8 or 9.
It was later. I know it was
Yeah.
the last couple weeks, but if he would be available or if his season was done after that. But maybe just some, goals for both of those teams or, things they would need to be successful in doing to come away with a win in their Week 11 matchup with each other.
Well, I mean, first off, it's stopping the run game
Right.
for Northwest. I mean, if they don't, honestly, if they don't, it could get ugly because the way the West played Friday, one, it was one of the better games that I've seen all year long. Two, I mean, you talk about a Wheelersburg team, you talk about being battle tested. Wheelersburg battle tested. I mean, West came into that game at home as a big underdog. I will just be honest. I didn't expect him to win. I picked West because all of you picked Wheelersburg. Now as soon as you got to the game and you saw the atmosphere and everything was going on, I mean, you was like, okay, well, maybe they do have a shot at this one, especially after that first quarter and the second quarter and they started to settle in. But I mean, if Northwest doesn't stop Ryan Sissel, they may be in for a long night. On the other side of the football, West's defense was smothering, on Friday, and it has been really all season long. If you take away the game against Waverly, they've been really good defensively. I just don't know that Northwest has the offensive options to, one, keep up with West on their offensive end, or two, to break free from that defense. Wyatt Brackman's a load. I mean, he's a big back. It's very similar to Sissel, but I don't want to sit here and say that Northwest is going to get beat 50-0, but I just don't see them, having much of a shot. But that doesn't mean that they won't. I mean, but if I had to pick, this game, which I'm sure we will, that John has already taken the crown, but we're continuing. It's not over yet. John
Regular
thinks it's
season,
over. We're picking playoff.
Regular season crown.
So there's always a postseason now.
That I will win.
I mean, but if I had to pick the game, I mean, I think West has it in good hands.
One other game, the only one in Region 20, we talked about it a little bit, Zane Trace and Clark Montessori. Obviously, Montessori not in our coverage area, but Zane Trace is 10-0 gold ball. Talk about them a little bit. Keys for them, impact players for them. I think we're all pretty familiar with, Langley, Barnhart, and all those guys. Bruce, want to talk a little bit about that?
Zane Trace did exactly what they were supposed to do all year, which was, they took care of business week by week. Sometimes was over in the first quarter. There's the couple games that were tight late. I mean, they scored with a little over a minute left to beat Uniota in one of the games of the year. Just an outstanding game.
You can check that out right on Ohio Sports Authority.
Check out that pass. No, I'm just.
Yeah.
That pass interference call at the end.
I thought it was.
Or the
extremely... as a Uniota guy, I wasn't even that mad about that call. But
I'm going to say nothing on this.
Yes. So the Pioneers took care of business all year. Carter Langley stepped in at quarterback and just had an outstanding year. Not the maybe sharpest passes, but 1 interception, 1 turnover. I mean,
Right. Didn't force anything.
yeah, doesn't force anything. He's got a couple of big weapons with Aiden Dunn and Austin Eisen, who are also 2 really good defensive backs. And then he just throw it up to Kyle Stonerock and Nayland Robinson. Like, I interviewed them after they beat Paint Valley, and I've talked to those. I've talked to those dudes. I like those kids a lot.
Oh yeah, they're good kids.
Coached against them and everything, and like those dudes are huge. And so, I understand where part of the reason why they're so powerful running the ball. Daniel Barnhart is nearly 10 yards a carry, over 1,000 yards in the year. Blake Phillips, little less yardage. He looked a little banged up in the Uniontown game and then still had 3 touchdowns.
And the game winning,
and the game winning score. He hasn't carried the ball a ton, but he gets about 8 yards a carry. Again, I 17 touchdowns on the year rushing. It's just he's had an outstanding year. He's a really good defensive player. Spencer Brower is another really good defensive player. Brannigan, Lane Stewart, one of the top sack men in the SBC. They've got a lot of guys that can make things happen. They try to spread the ball out a little bit, but if Daniel Barnhart's running the ball like we've talked about with these big bruising backs, like that dude is a big bruising back. Runs hard, runs straight downhill. It's just there's
no east-west.
Yeah, and Zane Trace, they're going to be a big favorite over Clark Montessori. Which is good because they've earned a one of those games with
would be their it would be their second it'd be their 3rd hosted playoff game in history. Would be their 2nd win if they could win after last year's loss to Portsmouth. I think their first was River Valley, which was the last team to go undefeated. That back, remember Truman Love and Pierce Mowry and all those guys.
Team 44.
Carter Langley, to me, we talk about players that have big impacts on their playoff run. If he at the Uniontown game, we know Daniel Barnhart, Blake Phillips, and those guys in the backfield, they're going to get theirs. He beat Uniontown that night in the air with the touchdown pass. Really, if you go back to that play,
because it was right after Uniontown scored to go up 10.
Yeah,
and
I mean,
he breaks a 15-yard run. And then he throws the 45-yard touchdown pass,
which nobody sees coming. Because they've just run. Langley throws a pass, it ends that way, and then gets a whole momentum back. And then the Pioneers, obviously did what they did at the end of the night and win by 35-31. So but I do think we talked about earlier about teams that can get to Week 12. I think Zane Trace has a really good shot.
Yeah, I like their chances to get to Week 12. They would have to play Madeira, who is very good in Week 13, but it would be a home game, or Week 12. I mean, it would be a home game, and it's not easy to win at Zane Trace.
That's true.
And that's a long trip from Madeira.
Exactly. Yeah. That's the thing. That's a long trip.
And, Madeira, like I mentioned with Wyoming, came from the Cincinnati Hills League. Not as good of a league as it has been in the past, but they are one of those really improved teams, too. They were 4-7 last year, so they had made it to the playoffs also. But, with Zane Trace, would I would say either be the favorite or that's a pick 'em. And I like their chances to make to Week 13, and then you just see where you're at from there.
I just think Heath Hinton should say "Go Pios" because he sounds like
he's got a great voice.
He does.
He sounds like Ogeron.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. When you talk, and he is a football guy.
Uh-huh.
When you talk, I mean, any Hinton is a football guy.
That's fair.
But Heath Hinton is a football guy. I just wish he'd end every interview with "Go Pios."
Yeah.
Go Pios.
How about Nears?
Or there you go. Go Nears. Yeah, I like that. All right.
Any impact players for any of these Division 5 teams in Region 19 or 20?
Well, I'll just go with.
I know we've talked about some players individually, but if you want to reiterate that or maybe pick somebody else.
Well, I was just talking about Zane Trace, so I'll stick there, and I went Blake Phillips.
Yeah.
Is where I went. Two-way star for him, makes things happen. Had a huge pick 6 against Paint Valley, which ultimately, that's an 8-point game.
Decider.
Swings the game. Is really good at getting into the end zone, about 8 yards of carry. If they can get him 10 to 12 carries, I like their chances to put up points. He's a really good linebacker. He's not really up there as much in tackles, but that's kind of one of those things. Kind of look at if you look at kind of some of these really good teams' numbers, they don't play a lot in the third and fourth quarters, so they're not going to get a lot of tackles. Really good player overall, and I think he could make a huge impact for Zane Trace.
I'll go with a team we really haven't talked about as Wheelersburg, Eric Lattimore. West wins 14-7 last week, but probably could have had 2 more scores. They're driving. Lattimore comes up with 2 interceptions. We know how dangerous he is with the football in his hands. He's quick. He's shifty. Anytime he's got the ball in his hands, there's a chance he takes it to the house. Wheelersburg doesn't pass the ball a lot, but if they do, if they have to go that way, which they did against West, he can go out wide. You can hit him with a screen. He can go deep. I mean, he's kind of that triple threat type of guy, and he returns punts and kicks with that speed. So I think if he can get going, if they can get him going, and obviously in the backfield there, you've got Creed Warren, Ethan Glover, obviously Lattimore, the other Lattimore, and Derek Lattimore. They've got so many kids they can spread the ball to, but Eric is probably the most dangerous when the ball's in his hands.
I'm going to go to Portsmouth for my player to watch, and I'm gonna go with Nolan Highland on this. Kind of a do-it-all guy. Wide receiver, DB, he's a ball hawk, offensively and defensively. Anytime the ball's in his hands, magic is going to happen. Just through the 8 games in which that I found, he had 6 touchdown catches. He had 4 interceptions as well. Just production all over the field. And more importantly, he just has that mentality and he has that energy that his guys just feed off. He is a guy who's not scared of anything. He's not scared of any player, not scared of any moment. He rises to every occasion. I think just the more you can get the ball in his hands, the better their chances will be to go to win Week 11 and go to Week 12.
We talked a little bit earlier about Northwest. My impact player, I went with Wyatt Brackman. I believe I made the comparison when we did that the Northwest at Valley game. I think that was Week 6 when that was, or Week 6, 7. It was kind of in somewhere in there.
Would have been Week 5. Yeah,
Week 5. I knew it was somewhere in the middle weeks.
Yeah.
Just a big kid, but I also made the comparison to a Peyton Hillis type player. I don't really think I don't think you could paint a better picture when you talk about a Peyton Hillis type player. And you look at him in the book at 6 foot 230. Obviously, going to be an absolute bruiser going forward. They use him in the passing game a little bit. I remember in that game they were faced with what I believe was a 3rd and 14 or 15, and they're running a little screen pass to the left side for Brackman, and he's catching the ball a couple yards behind the line of scrimmage. I don't remember exactly if he got the first down, but I know it was close.
It was like dare to tackle this kid.
Right. Funny enough, going up against another guy just like him, Ryan Sissel.
Yeah.
2 big guys going up against each other. I think that'll be a pretty good matchup.
Goliath versus Goliath.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Giants. And Coach Gilliland's right. When you look at Sissel, he's a brute. So is Brackman.
Right. 2 big guys. I wanted to, before we go to break, I wanted to kind of go back to the Wheelersburg-Heath matchup.
Yeah.
Wheelersburg, you lose to Portsmouth West. It's kind of like everybody starts to kind of forget about Wheelersburg a little bit. We almost did. We didn't even really talk about them until you took them for, I can't remember which player, but you took them for your impact player.
Well, if you keep, basically, Wheelersburg, you talk about tradition. They've been here. They understand what it takes to win playoff games. He's a good football team, too. They've lost to Granville. They've lost to Licking Valley. They've lost to Newark Catholic. The one that kind of puzzles me is Zanesville. They lose to Zanesville 22-11. If I'm looking at a matchup, I think Wheelersburg wins that game just because they have more options.
Berg versus Ironton, regional final.
Yeah,
that's
could absolutely happen, yeah.
And with that, I believe that is all we have for Division 5. We'll take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll have head coach Andy Hall of the Jackson Ironmen. He'll come in and chat with us. You're watching the Horizon Football Playoff Preview Show right here on Southern Ohio Sports Authority, presented by OhioHealth. We'll be back in a moment.
This is big. Horizon's fiber internet is ready. Let them get you hooked up and power your Wi-Fi network with the speed and reliability that only a 100% fiber network can do. Horizon is ready to help you do what you do better, with real people, a reliable connection, and great customer service. Sign up today for as low as $40.95 a month, plus no contracts and no data caps. Call 740-772-8331 or visit horizonconnects.com/Chillicothe to sign up today.
Hey, Mike Glockner here from the Glockner family of dealerships. Want to wish all the fall sports athletes a very safe and successful year. Good luck.
At OhioHealth, you can see your doctor here or here, on this or on these. And no matter if you're over here, over there, or anywhere in between, you'll feel good knowing OhioHealth provides the finest care anywhere. Schedule care today at ohiohealth.com/finestcare.
This broadcast is brought to you in part by Willie and Son Trucking. Willie and Son Trucking has been a proud supporter of local student athletes, coaches, and athletic programs throughout its history. Be sure to look out for the Shack Athlete of the Week presented by Willie and Son Trucking each week at SOSAOhio.com.
If there's not a Parmar store near you now, there will be soon. That's the slogan, and that's what we believe at Parmar stores. From groceries to gas and all the other stuff you need, Parmar has it. Download the Parmar app for even more savings, and don't forget the Parmar Rewards Card too. We also believe in being a big part of your community, so look for us at the ball game or wherever you are. Shop us today, like us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and remember, if there's not a Parmar store near you now, there will be soon.
And welcome back into the Horizon Football Playoff Preview Show here on Southern Ohio Sports Authority, presented by OhioHealth. On the call, we have Andy Hall, head coach of the Jackson Ironmen. Coach, how are we doing tonight?
Good. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Just a quick highlight here. Obviously, you come off the win against Chillicothe in Week 10. I guess the kind of question I want to ask is, how long did that celebration of that win last before the team's mindset kind of shifted towards your Week 11 opponent in a Miami Trace that you've already played once this season?
I'd say about 12 hours. And then all of a sudden you start thinking about, going on to the third season here. And, we come off an emotional win Friday night. Anytime Chillicothe and Jackson play, it's always a tough game, and especially there at Hernstein Field. And, it didn't disappoint this year. It was a slugfest for, 2 quarters. We were able to take a 7-0 lead and block a field goal right before the half and take that score into the half. And, second half, we were able to get a couple drives together, and Cade Wolford was able to have 2 rushing touchdowns and really kind of highlighted the night with 150 yards rushing. And defensively, we played really well. We held them to 160 yards total offense. Really, it was ourselves getting in our own way offensively. We had several holding calls and some penalties that cut off drives, and we didn't punt first half, but felt like we had shot ourselves in the foot, and we could make the improvements, and we did to a certain extent. But give Chillicothe a lot of credit. They had a great game plan. They were going to slow the game down and limit our possessions, and they did. And but I thought in the second half, defensively, we really took control of things and got some big plays offensively, and were able to grind out the clock. And our rushing attack probably was the best rushing performance we've had this year. It had close to 300 yards running the football. And, again, it's just a very physical game, and that's what rivalry games are all about.
Coach, when you look at, you guys have always played a really tough schedule. Have you guys been able to ramp it up a little bit more because of the 16 teams getting in, or is it just something you look at year to year? Because your schedule is just outstanding even before you get into the FAC, which was a really good conference again this year.
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of both. I think, my AD, Pat Stevens, and I had a plan 3 years ago to, back 2018, 2019, that, going 10-0 was great, but if you can't compete for a regional championship, then what's the point? And so after the 19 season, we were 10-0 and got to the regional semis and lost a tough one against Jonathan Alder. And, we just really looked at, well, what can we do to be better? And so, after that season, we started to really beef things up. Of course, COVID, put a damper on some of that, but in 2020, but, we just felt like that, you have to get that mindset that, if you want to continue and push this program to the next level, those type of championships, which our school has not seen yet, needs to happen. And how do you do that? Well, you have to play really good people. Year in, year out, you can't control your conference. This year our conference was extremely competitive, but you can't always control that. Right. But you can't control your non-league. And we lined up with, Logan, of course, is the SEOL old rival. I know Coach Eddie's getting that team going. But then you go Ironton, Tri-Valley, Western Brown, Wittersburg, all those teams that had been in state championship games or regional final games in the last 4 or 5 years. So we figured those guys, year in, year out, going to be great football teams. So, if you can compete at that level, and then, we scrimmaged Bellbrook, who's, they're a regional probably favorite in Region 12. They were 9-1 this year. Ashland Paul Blazer won the state championship in Kentucky 2 years ago. We scrimmaged them. We just felt like that, that's what's the best for our kids to get ready, regardless of what your record is at the end of the year.
Mm-hmm. So, Coach, you mentioned that you and Pat, you had a plan 3 years ago, meaning that you were setting up this senior class, to achieve something, that Jackson, has been longing for, and you guys have such a proud football tradition. Over the course of your 14 years, you've had a lot of great senior classes. What is so special about this class, and what makes them stand out so much?
Well, I think they're pretty close. Their commitment in the weight room has been unmatched. When you look at their numbers and attendance and what they do to push other kids, in the off season, this was a player driven team. Even though I'm there in the weight room, they ran it, and they made sure kids were there. And if they weren't, they were accountable for that. And just their attitude in the winter and spring was just a little bit different, because each and every year we've gotten closer and closer, and they've tasted it, they've seen it. Last year we thought we were right there, with Western Brown again, who of course went to the regional final, and we felt like if we could have got there, we could have competed with Granville, who ended up being the regional champs last year. And it's just something that our kids, after that regional semifinal loss, felt like, we're right there. And what does it take to get over the top? And so, I reminded those kids after we were 2-2, getting beat by Tri-Valley there on a last second kick, lose by 1 on the bus ride home. We're sitting there thinking, okay, 2-2, playing Wittersburg next week. We haven't beat them but one time in 20 years at Wittersburg. Everyone knows that's a tough place to play. And, I told the kids, this is what we've talked about. I told you this season was going to be very difficult, and, adversity. We talked about, make a coward or a hero out of each of us, and which one you going to be. And so we had a great week there, and we had the scoreboard. We're down 9-0 going in the third quarter of that game. It easily could have been a 2-3 record, but we came back and won, and big victory there. And I think that really sprung us into the conference. And we played pretty well throughout the conference schedule, and now here's, like I said, the third season, and we're hoping these games have prepared us for a run that we have not seen in school history.
Coach, you look at your schedule, and you mentioned the 2-2 start, but you look at all of your opponents. 3 teams have scored 28 or more points this year against you guys, and that's Ironton, Western Brown, and Miami Trace, who you're going to see again, in just a couple of days here. What did they do so well last game to put points up onto the board, and how do you guys, make, or I guess what adjustments do you need to make to kind of, keep that point total at a minimum?
Well, the first thing what we need to do is I will punt the ball on 4th and 2 on my own 35-yard line next time. That we were up 28-7, had things under control. I decided, like a bonehead I can be sometimes, to just go for it, and we don't get it. We give up a touchdown, made it 28-14. Then we fumble a punt. They get it back. They score again. Next thing I know, it's 28-21. I'm thinking, you got to be kidding me. But their quarterback had a nice night. They have a couple of nice wideouts. We were able to contain their run really well. But they got us on some passes. We had a couple of missed coverages that they were able to take advantage of. But last week against Courthouse, of course, their rival, they ran the football. They decided not to throw it as much, and so they were running some wing stuff and some counter and stuff that we do, and they did a real good job with it. So going into this game and 30 years of coaching, 14 being at Jackson, I've never played someone twice in a season. So this is kind of new for me and our staff. Okay, now it's round 2. I know basketball and baseball does it all the time, but for us, this is something different. So the chess match continues. Are they going to try to run like they did last week and had success, or are they going to throw the ball like they had success against us? So, 2 different game plans for us for sure to have to defend.
Else? You go. Okay.
Yeah, Coach, I got one more question for you.
Yeah.
What your backfield duo of Jacob Winters and Cade Wolford. I've seen them both. Ever since they were freshmen, and I've just seen just the growth, the maturation, the progress, but also the want to get better. So how have you? So we see the commitment, in the weight room. How has that, how have you seen that just translate to, just the improvement on the field as well?
Well, those are 2 kids that had perfect attendance in the weight room among a lot of other kids in our class. But, they're both quiet leaders. They don't really say a lot in a game, but their actions speak, louder than their words, so to speak. And, they're hard workers, and kids follow that. And like you said, they've been a big part of our offense. We've had, we feel like we have a kind of a 3-headed monster with Eli Berman and Nolan Johnson back in the backfield as well. I feel like, with 5 senior linemen, or actually 6 senior linemen that we play, that gives us an advantage up front to be able to run the football. Jacob has, of course, the ability at 220 to run and throw. But, it's been a special deal. One of the stats I love to tell people is that we've had 18 different kids score touchdowns in a varsity game this season. So, it's not a one-man show. Cade gets a lot of notoriety, and he deserves it. But he also knows he's got running mates that he can depend on as well. And last Friday night was a big night for him. We really rode his coattails, so to speak. But there's a lot of guys in this football team that can do some special things. And we've thrown for, I think we're right at 18 or 1900 yards throwing the football with only 5 interceptions. I think he's got 17, 18 touchdowns. And then, Cade's got 1,000 yards rushing. We're about 1,000 Friday night. But, we've been averaging around 220 yards a game rushing and 210 or so yards passing. So, the balance has been helpful for us. Didn't see much balance Friday night, but, throughout the year, we've been, pretty confident we can do both.
Well, Coach, we sure appreciate it. Appreciate taking the time out of your night to come on. Coach Andy Hall going to hosting Miami Trace this Friday. I'm sure Brock will have coverage from that game. I'm sorry, Coach, you get to see Brock more than the other guys.
That's fine. Hey, it's okay. He doesn't get in the way, so that's all
there
good.
There you go.
I appreciate that.
Well, we appreciate it. And by the way, Coach, we appreciate I wanted to tell you that we appreciate you allowing Corey Hall to be there this past Friday in the locker room, getting that locked in photo gallery up too. I know he had a lot of fun with it. We really appreciate that access as well. So
well, good. Good. He did a great job. I didn't know he was there. So
there you go.
Was a good thing.
Well, good luck this Friday. We will see you soon.
All right. Thank you for having me.
And that also segues us into our coverage of Division III Region 11. We also have a ton of games in here. One of those obviously being the Miami Trace and Jackson rematch. But some other games also include Columbus South hosting Washington Courthouse, Chillicothe traveling to London, Bloom Carroll hosting Beechcroft, and Circleville traveling to Thornville. Any of those games we're eyeballing, maybe thinking upset alert, or maybe thinking going to be a really good game?
I think the obvious one is Chillicothe and London. I think that's kind of the obvious one, simply because those two teams, they squared off in the regular season as well. I believe it was back week 2. Yeah, Chillicothe. It was a home game for the Cavaliers, and they just managed to pull off a 27-24 victory. Now the shoe's on the other foot. Now you have to go to London. And there's no doubt that the week 2 loss is definitely on London's mind. They want their revenge. The Cavaliers. There's no Max Lee in this game, so you're coming off of an emotional loss as well. It's going to be interesting to see if they can establish a running game at all because they only had 30 yards running, against Jackson, and they had 44 in the first half, and then just kept losing yardage to where they just got behind so much. So I mean, obviously, the key for them going in is they have to find a running game, whether that's Oscar Morgan, whether that's Lucas Reinhardt, scat batting, Miles Lewis, whether it's Quinlan Netter, running the ball as well. They have got to find a running game because if they're just depending, pass them on pass, like not every ball is going to be a completion. So there's going to be some incompletions, and that leads to tough situations. It leads to long third downs. It leads to a lot of other things. It leads you getting behind the 8 ball, so to speak. So they have got to find a running game. That's going to be the key for that game.
Yeah, on Fantastic 50, they're 17-point underdogs, even though they had already won. I'm gonna counter that and say that at most it's a 1-possession game. I just don't.
That's incredible.
Yeah, so 17 sounds out.
But I think where they beat Bellefontaine so handily last weekend, they got a big bump. But
I think it's a 2-score game
for London.
Absolutely, I think without Max Lee, I think London wins by 2 scores.
All right.
And I don't mean any disrespect towards Chillicothe. I just think Max Lee was the heart and soul of that team.
Yeah, but I like. You have Mason Dowdy, a senior who's played a lot of quarterback, played a lot, does a good job throwing the ball, limits turnovers as well. If he can get the ball to Trey King and Tavion Galloway, and if those two can get in space, I like their chances to score some points. But missing Max Lee is huge. But they've got a lot of talent. There's a lot of talent on that team. Coach Bart is he's a great coach. He's got a really good staff there. I like their chances to hang in the game and possibly win late. Have you guys ever been to London?
I have not. The Red Raiders.
The Red Raiders. Yeah, it is a great high school stadium. Should be a great atmosphere. I have them. I have the Red Raiders on upset alert.
Okay.
I think Chillicothe's got a chance. But like you mentioned, not having Max Lee, that's a huge part. But these Chillicothe kids have, they've played a really tough schedule. They've got themselves in a position to where it's a game against a team that they've beaten. They need to not go in overconfident either, though.
Well, the thing is, to me, is they've beaten one team with a winning record. It was London.
Yeah.
It was 7-3.
Yeah.
But other than that, and I know they've played Waverly, Logan, Westerville South. You're right. They've played a good schedule, and like Westerville South, I believe, was like 3 and
North.
Or, I'm sorry,
North.
Westerville North was like 3 and 7. I want to say, or something like that. But
was,
that was a close game. I mean, and so they've played a good schedule. And then of course you throw in Jackson and Washington.
This will make at least one of our listeners happy. Westerville North's offense coordinator, Brick Davis, former Uniota, great.
But they beat one team with a winning record, and now they have to go to London, who they beat by 3 without a Max Lee. I guarantee you, in that London game, he was a huge part of London scoring just 24 points. If you watched Max Lee play, and I know you guys have, he's just so important to every part of the game. I'm going to switch to a different matchup, though, Dewey, and I'm going to say Washington Courthouse. They're at Columbus South.
Yep.
I'm going to say they go into Columbus South and win that game.
Yeah, South has played one of the weakest schedules in the state.
Yes, and they do have wins over Marion Franklin, who's 6-3, Briggs, who's 5-4. But Washington has way too many weapons. I think that if they go in, especially after a loss to Jackson, last week they kind of got their mojo back, and when you're playing Miami Trace, Washington, I don't care. If they
throw the records out.
Yeah, it's like Unioto Zane Trace. It's like Chillicothe Jackson. I mean, it's one of those games, but they get a big win to get back in the W column. Now they can, kind of gain some confidence going into that game. But, I mean, we know how good Troy Thompson is at quarterback. Tanner LeMaster, we know how good he is. I mean, on the outside, in the end zone, wherever they give him the football. And then, you talk about Kalen Brown and Michael Bearden and Rocky Jones, who I love in space. I mean, Rocky Jones is probably one of the most athletic kids that we cover this year in space. And A.J. Dallmeyer. That was the name that was escaping me. AJ, and Isaiah Haithcock. I mean, you can just keep going with this team and the weapons that they have. I think they have a really decent shot at getting to Week 13. If they play like they can't have a slow start like they did at Jackson. Brock, in that article you wrote, the wheels fell off. It hadn't happened all year until that game. Even in the Western Brown loss, the wheels didn't fall off.
Right.
That's a boat race, that's a track meet, I should say, and they're both scoring. So I do think that they go into Columbus South and win. That's an upset.
Yeah, one of those.
I can't figure out how they're not hosting a game. I know it's a tough region. Obviously, you get a lot of good teams, but
the points are insane. Like Chillicothe,
they really are.
Over 20 points is nuts, and they're the 11. So that was a game I looked at too. Was Washington at Columbus South. Like I mentioned, South not playing a real strong schedule. I mean, Chillicothe scrimmaged them earlier. Now was with Max Lee,
right.
But in that scrimmage, South was not one of the teams that was able to move the ball.
Yeah.
So I think that it's a matchup that Washington definitely has a good chance to win, and at least it's not too long of a trip either.
True.
I mean, there's some doozies in these regions.
Well, heck, Eastern Brown in soccer went to Westfall last week.
Yeah.
Talk about a drive, but I talked about Courthouse's offense, their defense, and you said Columbus South couldn't move the ball against Chillicothe.
Mm-hmm.
Courthouse's defense is really good too.
Yeah.
There's 4 shutouts. I believe that's the most since the 1970s, something like that. At one point or another, they had pitched 11 straight quarters with a goose egg. So they're going to play well. If they score 20, 25 points, I think that's really all they'll need.
Wait, you mentioned Dahlmeyer. Is it now the all-time leading receiver at Washington?
It's kind of like Maddox Fox.
Yeah.
Right?
He just throws like 95.
Right.
Yeah. Heck of a baseball player. Yeah.
Division I signee.
Yeah. Dahlmeyer holds 2 records: career catches and career receiving yards, and he's 1 or 2 touchdowns away from holding career touchdowns as well.
Which he could definitely get in Week 11.
Yeah, 100%.
Another guy you mentioned, Rocky Jones. Looking, at least because I haven't seen them play in person. I know, we were hinting at going to that Week 3 game. I think you ended up going to it with Paint Valley. But 631 rushing yards, along with 316 receiving yards, 10 total touchdowns. He had 5 apiece between rushing and receiving.
Reminds you of Debo Samuel.
Or Austin Eckler.
I mean, to make a comparison, he can pass out of the backfield. He can run the ball. They hand the ball off to him a lot. But I think what helps him so much is the receivers on the outside. And Courthouse, you have to defend the pass, which opens up the run, as we've talked about all night. And when Rocky Jones gets out in space, he's a scat back, and he's going to make defenders miss. So. And
I did do a little research into that game. Damon Griffin Jr., the quarterback for Columbus South, under a 45% completion percentage. There's actually some huddle highlights on there that I was watching. He has more rushing yards than passing yards, and more or less any. I don't want to say all because I'm only seeing a select few of the highlights, but I'd say 3 out of his 4 completions come from a rollout. We always called it flood when you go to you roll out one way or the other. He's completing a lot of passes rolling out of the pocket. I think if Courthouse is able to close the pocket and keep him stuck in that pocket, make him throw, I think obviously that would be a huge advantage for them if they can keep Griffin Jr. in the pocket. Some other games we already kind of talked about London and Chillicothe. Jackson, Miami Trace, I know we talked with Andy Hall. If we want to go a little bit deeper into that game, maybe talk about keys for, obviously Miami Trace looking for a pretty solid upset here, 2-15, can only get 1 seed further apart, but also maybe some keys for Jackson going into that matchup.
I think the biggest thing for Miami Trace is that they have to take advantage of any Jackson mistakes, whether that's just a simple penalty, whether it's a turnover, no matter what it is, you have to take advantage. Jackson's biggest problem all season, as Coach Hall mentioned, is that they get penalized a lot. They had 6 in the first half against Chillicothe. I think 3 of them were on third downs. So they do make mistakes, and when those mistakes happen, you have to capitalize. But more importantly than just getting the possession. You have to do something with that possession as well. So you can't just punt it right back to them. Jackson's way too good of a team to even let one one empty possession slide by. You have to take advantage of every situation. Take the points, no matter what. Nice quote to Zach Taylor. Take the points. Yeah. Same thing for Miami Trace.
Miami Trace is finished 4-6 this year. 3 of those losses, which Waverly, Chillicothe, Courthouse, all games they led late in those games and lost the lead in the final minute. So they have been close. Jackson early in the year had the tendency to put the ball on the turf. Were a little loose, with the ball handling. So, like you mentioned, Brock, they have to take advantage of any of those, and then they had to finish. They're going to be a big underdog, but they have some talent. They've got some beef up front, and they can play. It's just they got to take care of business. They got to take care of themselves. They got to take advantage of any opportunities they have.
Not to mention, I don't think there's much pressure on Miami Trace at all. So, I mean, you already suffered a 21-point loss. At Jackson, you're just going back to a familiar place, just getting a second chance. Like you know what Jackson is going to do. It's just a matter of how do we learn from our mistakes, and then just shore those up. So there's really no pressure on the Panthers at all. It's all on the Ironmen because of the lofty goals that Jackson has set. The fact they already have a victory over them. All the pressure's on Jackson.
If Miami Trace wins, is it the biggest win in school history?
No.
Why?
They went to the state.
I mean,
with a person that can't be talked about, Harsh Leister, but I mean,
wow. So that was a while ago then.
Yeah, it'll be the biggest win
but
in
still,
a long time.
Yeah,
but
I would say, but still,
okay,
no.
Because that's to me.
No,
that's how lopsided this match is.
I mean, I see where you're coming from. It'll be their biggest win in 30 years.
Well, sure,
Most
that's
definitely.
easy, right?
I don't know if it'd be their biggest in school history, but you could probably put it in their top 3. You can probably do that.
I might even put it top 2. I mean, really.
You have the spread for that game?
They also went to the. They also won a regional in '96 also. So.
I still think they'd want to beat Jackson first round. I'm sorry.
I mean,
I'm just throwing it out.
I get where you're coming from.
That's how good
where you're coming from.
Because my thing is, in this region, Jackson has a real shot at winning the region.
Yeah, they do. It's a tough region, but
that's how good Jackson is.
Exactly. So
Andy mentioned the win at Wheelersburg. You go to Wheelersburg and win. And really, that team is, 4 points away from 10-0?
Yeah.
29-26 Ironton, 14-13.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they're 4 points away from a 1 seed in 10-0. We talked about how good Ironton is. And actually, they probably should have beat Ironton.
100% they should.
So, yeah, I mean, I think Jackson's definitely the region favorite. That's the only reason I bring that up. Is it the biggest win in school history if you beat the region favorite?
Maybe since 2000.
You keep finding
millennium.
More.
No, I'm just saying, you can't just ignore your history.
No, I get it. I'm just saying, if you beat Jackson, you can beat anybody in the region.
100%.
So you could go to state. You see what I'm saying? Okay. So that's where I'm going with.
That makes a little.
Okay.
Still think it's one of the biggest wins in there. If we're talking about things that won't happen. So,
like I said, I'll give you top 3. I will give you top 3 if it
won't.
happens. I don't think it's going to happen.
I'm history.
That's
I
mean, I get that.
I wouldn't take the money line.
Take the under. Take the over in that.
I also wouldn't stay away from Saturday Downs.
Yeah, I should.
Okay, fair enough.
Do we have any thoughts on the Thornville-Circleville matchup, 1 versus 16?
Hey, how about Circleville getting back to the playoffs?
Yeah, Circleville getting back to the playoffs. That's a huge win there.
That was.
Are we prefacing that with saying, "Hey, congrats, you got it to the playoffs"?
100%. Yeah,
because
you get a trip to Thornville and hey, congratulations.
That's
guys.
That's a terrible.
That's not that long.
I don't like the trip.
No, I agree.
You know what I mean? It's not long. I don't like the trip.
The trip is terrible.
Oh,
my gosh.
They went.
Take some meclizine.
What?
Meclizine. It keeps you from getting nauseous on a trip. I'm serious.
Okay, they did pharmacists here on the.
They did not play at Fairfield Union this year, so they have not made a similar trip. But
true.
They were a team, Circleville, who kind of went all the way back to square one.
Mm-hmm.
They've had a good program in the past. It's been rough for the last few years. Coach Evans has done a really good job of getting them back on the right direction. They have a great senior class, just athletically. They went out and they found 3 SVC schools that were not supposed to be very good. And the one they won by the most was Huntington, who ended up being pretty good.
Best of the 3.
Yeah. So, they go to Huntington, go to Southeastern, play Westfall, which is a county rival, and they get 3 wins. They go in the league, and of course you get to start off with Bloom Carroll and Logan Elm. But then they go to Amanda, beat Amanda. Then they have to win in week 10. And they go to Liberty Union and beat Liberty Union, get back to the playoffs. It's just awesome for them. Very, very, very long shot to beat Sheridan. But I mean, if you look at Sheridan's results, their wins, but they haven't been as dominating as we've seen Sheridan in the past. But they've beaten some good teams. It's a long shot for Circleville, but they get another week of practice.
Do we have any impact players? I know we touched a lot on the skilled guys for Courthouse. We talked a little bit about those of Chillicothe. We didn't get too deep into those of Jackson. We talked a little bit with Coach Hall about his players. Do we want to single out any of those players as the impact player for those teams in this Region 11 tournament here?
John's really excited.
I just want to take Cade Wolford.
Oh,
that dude's a monster.
So Brock has to reshuffle.
Yeah,
Dewey.
That's fine.
Reshuffling.
No, I was not going to name Cade.
Did you read the sheet? Did you read Dewey's sheet?
As I was saying it, yes. But,
okay, gotcha.
But I had him on my list. If obviously Jacob Winters is a monster. Nolan Johnson really good. It's a team that has a lot of different impact players, but I think when Wolford gets going, that is when they're at their best. Obviously he's absurdly fast, but he's a really good running back, catches the ball really well out of the backfield, can just make people miss, does a lot of really good things. That's why I went with him.
He had I think it was 25 for like $156. Somewhere I threw my paper, so I can't read it anymore.
I'll add on to your Wolford point with this. He leads their team in rushing yards,
receptions,
rushing touchdowns, catches, and touchdown catches as well. So he is the ultimate weapon. You did not steal any thunder from me, so you're fine there.
A similar player like him just got traded to the 49ers. So.
Christian McCaffrey.
Yeah, but Wolford stays healthy anyway. So my impact player, I am going to Jackson. I'm actually going with Brody Butcher. He's their tight end, linebacker. He's the captain of their defense, and all he does is make plays and catch touchdowns. So he'll have 1 or 2 catches a night, but you know that there's going to be a touchdown at the end of that catch, no matter what. He just has a knack for getting open, for seeing the open spots, for being creative when a play breaks down, kind of just rolling along wherever Jacob Winters goes. He has that ability, and then defensively he is tenacious as they come from his linebacker position. One of their leading tacklers. The captain of their defense. A defense that has been kind of firing on all cylinders over the past 6, 7, 8 games. So his impact on both sides of the ball, being an open target for Jacob Winters to throw to, and also just getting in the backfield, making those tackles. Brody Butcher is my player to watch.
I'm going to go to Chillicothe, and I'm going to go Trey King. You said all he does is catches touchdowns. That's all Trey King does. And when they're in the red zone, he's such a weapon. Now, you mentioned earlier they got to get a run game established and they got to get going. But if they can get a turnover, late or deep in London territory, or if they can get a drive going, as long as they're inside the 10-yard line, throw it up to Trey King.
Yeah.
Because he's going to catch touchdowns. I covered them. Let's see. I've seen Taze Valley. I watched Jackson on tape, and then I saw them against Courthouse. And he provides such a mismatch because not only is he taller than most every defender he faces, but he's athletic.
Yeah.
And he's got great hands. He can go up and get the ball. Mossed a couple of kids already this year, but
had a big catch against Jackson for their only touchdown.
Yeah.
I mean that's. Where were they on the field?
They were
5-yard line, maybe. Inside the 10, red zone.
So
it's 4th down, too.
Yeah,
it was like 4th and 2.
It was 4th down. I was doing Jackson radio for the game, and I even pointed out I even pointed out, I saw it. I said, Trey King single coverage up top. I knew where it was going.
It
doesn't matter.
You can though.
Yeah.
If you're the defense,
Yeah.
and they're still going to throw the ball there,
Exactly.
and he's still going to catch the pass. I mean, he's just so athletic, and he adjusts in midair to the ball so well to the pass. So, I would go with him. I think if he can do it, make an impact.
Trey has 24 catches on the year, 9 touchdowns.
Yeah.
I mean, that's
a pretty good ratio.
I mean, how nice would it be if you're Mason Dowdy, where you can go, oh, I'm going to throw to Trey King, or I've got this LSU commit, Davion Galloway, who's
two guys.
Yeah, if the 6'3" guy isn't open, well, I'm sure the 6'5" guy, somewhere around here, I can just throw it to him.
So I mean, they've got some stuff to work on, like you mentioned with the running game, but with those two out wide, I like their chances to put up some points. They got to figure out some stuff defensively, but I mean, really to hold Jackson to 21 points is a good thing. So. I like.
And they did that without Max Lee.
Right.
I mean, that's
So that's where they're getting better, without playing, without,
How much of a difference does Coach Bart make on the defensive side of things? I mean, I know he's big on the X's and O's, but he's big in the trenches, and that's where Chillicothe has been so good this year, stopping the run and big up front, not just with Max Lee, but with, like you said earlier, with Oscar Morgan, with really anybody put in the backfield. They've been good at getting a push.
Well, I was surprised with how much they've improved, and I knew Coach Bart's a great coach. He's done it for years, and he was an assistant for the last few years with his son, who's doing well up at Olentangy. Yeah, he's just waiting for that program. That'll be fun in a couple years. Coach Bart's done just an outstanding job. Got them in. They had a chance to win a league title in Week 10, which is something that I don't think that I thought they would be able to do. When they beat London early in the season, that's when it kind of opened my eyes. Like, I knew Max was a stud.
Yeah.
And I knew they had some really good athletes, but they've had a really nice season, and it'd be great to see them win and to beat London again.
Do we have any clarifying statements regarding any of these teams? Maybe any bold predictions or, just overall thoughts about any of these matchups as a whole, or maybe just, how competitive leagues in this division, such as the FAC, through my paper, I can't remember all the teams now, but teams, it's mainly the FAC mostly. I think there's a couple others sprinkled in there as well.
I think it is a very open region. I don't think Sheridan as the one is light years better than anyone. I think Jackson is probably the favorite. They're going to have a couple tough. Waterson's really good.
Yeah.
Jerry Rositsky's kid, Ryan, is a stud. That's going to be a really tough Week 13 matchup. I think the winner of that Week 13 matchup, which I think will be Jackson and Bishop Watterson, I think they go to state.
But I will say this. Okay, I'm pretty sure we all have Jackson winning Week 11, correct?
Sure.
Okay, so if the seeds work out, that means they would get Granville for Week 12. That's not exactly a great match.
It's such a for them to win a regional this year they are not going to have
an easy road.
An easy road at all.
No.
Like
that's after Western Brown dropped from the region.
Yeah, that's like where I mentioned Miami Trace has been close, and they had leads late in 3 games. Like they're close to being right in this, like a much higher seed. So they don't even get a super easy first game. It's going to be tough for them, but they're definitely built to be ready for that with that tough schedule.
I think at some point they would like a second crack at Tri Valley. I don't know if that would be a regional final. I don't know.
It would have to be, but I don't think Tri Valley gets by Bloom. I just Bloom Carroll coming from Division 4, Division 3. It's going to be. That's going to be something they have to get used to. But I think
they're still really
good.
good.
They're still really good.
Still really, like you're coming off back-to-back state semifinals.
Yeah,
you're still a good program. Even if both Bartholomew coaches are there, you're still a great program.
They aren't gonna leave a cupboard bare.
No.
Now we are coming up on a coach call from Coach Corey Dye of the Paint Valley Bearcats. But before that, we'll take a quick pivot to Division 7, Region 27. Only 2 teams in that region that we cover, those being Green and Notre Dame, who happen to be the 8 and 9 seed and are matching up for the second time this season. First time around was their Week 7 matchup, where Notre Dame took that one at 29-21. This time they'll meet again in the postseason. How we feeling about that game?
Hey, I like the fact that Green went all in on a new stadium, and they get a home playoff game in it.
Yeah,
I mean, they
barely, but they
yeah. Hey, they
how you do.
If it's as good as you say it is, then it sounds like it was going to be a good stadium, regardless. Although
it's better than going to Notre Dame.
Historically, at least historically.
You don't like Spartan Stadium?
I'd rather go to. I mean, I haven't seen Green Stadium, but I saw pictures. It's beautiful.
Yeah, it looks immaculate.
Yeah.
So, but I mean, you asked about the game. I mean, I think it's going to be a good game. I mean, as it was, and honestly,
the first time around, right?
If you're playing an SOC 1 contest, it's a good game this year. I mean, it's just it's a crapshoot, really. I mean, you look at
Northwest,
Notre
Dame, East,
it's
or Eastern.
And so Northwest beats. As we were talking about earlier, Northwest beats Green, then gets beat by Eastern, but Eastern lost to Notre Dame, and it's crazy. Yeah. But when you talk about Green, they start out 6-0. They end the season 6-4.
Yeah.
So that's music to Notre Dame's ears, I would think. However, Notre Dame's coming off a 22-16 loss to East, who's also in the region. They're going to host South Gallia.
6 seed hosting South Gallia.
A 6 seed. Soutaville.
I know.
South Gallia is coming to Soutaville. But yeah, I mean, I think when you look at
correct.
The Tartans.
Shout out to the Tartans.
There's, what they've actually been really good in the past.
You pay attention to the past now.
So right, only when it matters. Only when it proves my point, right? But no, I mean, if you look at the game, you had Nathaniel Brannigan running the ball for them. Landon Lodwig, I believe it is, or Lodwick.
Right.
I think it's Lodwick.
Lodwig.
But that kid.
Apologies if we say your name incorrectly.
He's a threat at any time. I think is it Abe?
Abe McBee.
Abe McBee. Yep. He can score. I mean, so Green has an offense, and they've shown the ability to put up points, quickly. However, in their last, few games here, it's gotten, I mean, of course, they lost 41-26 last week at Eastern, who wins a share of the SOC 1 title. But they have the ability to score points. Notre Dame, on the other side of that, they also have that ability. They're just so, Jekyll and Hyde, both of these teams, that it honestly just depends on who shows up. I think it's a pick 'em. I mean, I think it's a toss-up as to who gets into Week 12. But it is good knowing that, at least one of those teams we're going to be covering in Week 12. Yeah. I just don't like when they play each other.
Here's the question: Do you want to make a pick on the game?
I know.
Just make a real quick.
What's
pick.
What's it looking like on?
They've Fantastic 50's got Notre Dame as an 8-point favorite.
8-point favorite. Okay.
8. Hey, they won by 8.
That took zero thought. They just looked at the last game. And
8.
Do you want to make a pick 'em and flip the cup? By the way, presented by Glockner Chevrolet. Thank you for the cup.
As well as our koozies.
Really, and the koozies.
Yeah.
Shout out to you guys. You're doing great work. Thank you. Okay, so.
As a Catholic, I will be taking Notre Dame.
It seems like a fair reason.
That is great logic.
Okay. Okay.
As an animal lover, I'll take Green. Bobcats, I'll take Green.
As a fan of the new stadium, and I believe momentum, even though they probably don't have it right now, I'm still going to pick.
Honestly, I think you're right. I think they scored 26 at Eastern, but Notre Dame's just so up and down. I mean, they only scored 16 last week against Soutaville, and then that's after beating Sims Valley 49-0.
Give me the Tartans.
But give me.
They're going to beat South Gallia.
I think so too.
Oh, yeah.
And honestly, East has not been bad this year, especially their defense.
No. 5-5. They won 3 straight after losing 5 straight.
Yeah.
So you got momentum back.
Yeah,
you got a home game. Yep. So hey, anything's possible.
What do you got?
Shout out to the Tartans once again.
I guess I'll roll with Notre Dame. I mean, a worse overall record, but you go 3-4, tied for 4th place. You finish above Green in the final SOC 1 rankings. Plus, they won last time. Plus, I think that evens it up 2 versus 2 because you did take Notre Dame. So we'll do that. That is all we have for the Division 7 Region 27 matchup. We'll take a quick break. When we come back, Coach Corey Dye on the call with all of us here on the Horizon Football Playoff Preview Show right here on Southern Ohio Sports Authority. We'll be back in a moment.
Michelle and her dad. Decades of dares. 1 month of learning to jump. First day doing it solo. And 2 years since starting cancer treatment at OhioHealth.
Hey, Mike Glockner here from the Glockner family of dealerships. Want to wish all the fall sports athletes a very safe and successful year. Good luck.
This is big. Horizon's fiber internet is ready. Let them get you hooked up and power your Wi-Fi network with the speed and reliability that only a 100% fiber network can do. Horizon is ready to help you do what you do better, with real people, a reliable connection, and great customer service. Sign up today for as low as $40.95 a month, plus no contracts and no data caps. Call 740-772-8331 or visit horizonconnects.com/Chillicothe to sign up today.
If there's not a Par Mar store near you now, there will be soon. That's the slogan, and that's what we believe at Par Mar stores. From groceries to gas and all the other stuff you need, Par Mar has it. Download the Par Mar app for even more savings, and don't forget the Par Mar rewards card too. We also believe in being a big part of your community, so look for us at the ball game or wherever you are. Shop us today, like us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and remember, if there's not a Par Mar store near you now, there will be soon.
This broadcast is brought to you in part by Willie and Son Trucking. Willie and Son Trucking has been a proud supporter of local student athletes, coaches, and athletic programs throughout its history. Be sure to look out for the Shack Athlete of the Week presented by Willie and Son Trucking each week at SOSAOhio.com.
And we welcome you back in here to the Horizon Football Playoff Preview Show here on Southern Ohio Sports Authority presented by OhioHealth. We've reached our final division and regions here in the preview show, and we'll start it off with a coach call from Coach Corey Dye of the Paint Valley Bearcats. Coach, how are we doing tonight?
Doing pretty good, guys. Thanks for having me on the show.
Coach, you wrapped up the regular season with a 55-14 win over Southeastern. You finished up your season 6-4. You're going to get a rematch with the Huntsmen here. You put them away 39-26 back in Week 7. How are we feeling about the matchup here in Week 11?
Well, I mean, obviously, the last game, Huntington, I mean, it was a really close game. They've got some really good football players. Their kids play hard. And, I really feel like it's going to be a tough matchup for us.
And one more question from me, and then I'll pass it off to the rest of the guys here. I want to talk about the impact of Braylon Robertson. Obviously, you get him coming in. I don't know exactly if he's your leading ball carrier in terms of how many carries they've gotten, but obviously either way, a big impact from Robertson. How do you think he, besides the obvious point, how do you think he has helped your guys' team this year?
Oh, Braylon's been huge for us. Not just Braylon, we got Dom Chambers who can carry the ball. We got Calvin Cooper. So really we got a three-headed monster in the backfield. And, Braylon's the type of kid where he gives you some agility along with some physicality. And, he's had a tremendous year for us. He gets the job done, not only running the football, but he blocks really well for both Calvin and Dom. So, we're blessed to definitely have him. He's definitely a dynamic player.
So Coach, you've had, you mentioned with Dom and Braylon and Calvin, how nice has it been to have a player like Carson Free emerge this year as a pass catcher and a really good defensive player as well for you?
Right. Carson has been huge for us. I mean, not only with his ability to catch the ball, and which, by the way, he broke the school record on Friday. Because, if you're from the Paint Valley area, you hear the name Drew Bob. That's pretty good record. So we're really proud of him and his ability to catch the ball. And, he's really come alive defensively for us as well. And he's actually leading the team in interceptions with 4, obviously, with having the hands that he has.
Yeah.
He does a good job coming up and making tackles as well. So you're right. Being able to pass the ball effectively has definitely been. He's been the reason why we've been able to do very well in that area.
Coach, 5 of the 8 SVC teams are playing in Week 11. Obviously, you guys play a good non-conference schedule, anyways. But I mean, how proud are you, of one, your conference, and just kind of talk about what that schedule does for you guys.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, the non-conference schedule. I mean, it definitely helped prepare us for the league because we took pride, kind of like Paul said earlier. We took pride in creating a schedule that wasn't going to be easy, and that's to help prepare us for our league play, and it definitely did that. And we fell a little bit short of what our goal was, which was to win the league. But the SVC has some really good football teams, got some dynamic players. I mentioned it to the coaches, I think last year in our meeting. We ought to start a SVC All-Star game versus the FAC. That'd be one heck of a show for people to watch. But really proud of our league and what it represents. I feel like people are really good. We got good coaches, got great administrators, and facilities are off the charts. And it's unfortunate that we have to play another SVC team, but that's just kind of how it works out. And we'll definitely do our best this Friday and against a really good Huntington team.
You mentioned that really good Huntington team, and they put up 26 points. The last time you guys met, we had just talked about Miami Trace and Miami Trace and Washington. Wheelersburg West, Unioto Zane Trace, games like that. I feel like it's kind of the same feeling when Huntington gets together with Paint Valley. You throw records out, that's a rivalry game, and it has been for quite some time. Now it means more. It meant a lot in the season already. 4 playoff points at that time for SVC title possibly. But what's it going to be like? Do you feel like on Friday night, to kind of play your arch rival in a playoff game where one team loses and that team goes home?
I think the atmosphere is going to be probably one of the best crowds we've had in a long time here. Since before COVID. Playing a school that's not only your rival, but is just, only several miles away, it's definitely going to spark some interest in the area. And, the fact that Huntington, this is their first time ever being in the playoffs. And, with the score being what it was the last time we played, I have a feeling this is going to be one heck of a crowd, and it's definitely going to be one heck of a game.
Hey, and I'll just say, if you haven't seen a game at Paint Valley, the atmosphere and the way the games ran, the music, it's just a great atmosphere. That's going to be a game to get to if you're just
early.
Because it should be a great atmosphere. But Coach, with your, obviously with Cavan, as a multi-year starter at quarterback, what growth have you seen with him in your 3 years at quarterback and just overall as a leader for you guys?
Well, when I first took the job, I knew immediately from watching film and watching him play in basketball that I was going to have a special player, and he's definitely done that. But with Calvin Cooper, you get a leader, probably one of the best football players I've ever coached. To be honest, it's like having an extra coach on the field. Really, I mean, his IQ at football is one to admire. And, his ability to be able to run the football, break away long runs is, it makes him definitely a tough guy to defend, makes him a dual threat. But his ability to throw the football this year, I think, is where he's probably grown the most in his game. I think right now he's currently around 1,400 yards passing. He's got 15 or 16 passing touchdowns along with 17 rushing. So 32 touchdowns. And that's, that's saying a lot. And it definitely will make our opponents have to game plan for him, and make us hard to be stopped.
Coach, just heading into Friday's game. What are a couple of things that you took from the first matchup, and what are you sure of, for the second matchup, just to give you guys just the best chance to advance to week 12.
Well, I mean, it was a hard fought game without a doubt. I mean, like you said earlier, you got to throw the records out. I mean, they're gonna give us their best. I mean, they've got quite a few seniors, got some terrific football players. Black, number 70, probably one of the best players in the league. Out, and then you add Vickers, Crocker, Puckett, Potter. I mean, Crocker's going to be back. And he didn't even play against us.
Mm-hmm.
He threw Leach in there. I mean, they've got some really good football players and that know how to play. They've been coached up well. I mean, I have a lot of respect for Coach Yates and what he's been able to do with this group. And but I think the key is can't turn the ball over. Obviously, you gotta win the line of scrimmage. I mean, that's our goal each and every week. When you can take control of the line of scrimmage, then obviously it makes calling plays a lot easier. And they're gonna present some challenges, and as far as like their game plan goes, I'm sure that we're probably going to see some different stuff both offensively and defensively, because I'm sure there's probably some things that they would have liked to have been able to do, just like us. And a lot of that, the nice thing about, playing a team you're familiar with, the players, you know kind of what you're going to get. And then you have the film to be able to go back and really study and see maybe some things that you missed the first round. So I really think the key though is we've got to win the line of scrimmage, and you cannot turn the ball over in this big a game. And then you got to throw in special teams too. It's 1/3 of the game. We try to take a lot of pride in our special team. It's definitely going to be a factor for sure.
Well, Coach, I think that's all we have for you tonight. We appreciate you taking some time out of your Sunday night to talk to us, and I'm assuming we may have somebody there Friday for that matchup. So we will see you Friday, and good luck in your Week 11 matchup with the Huntington Huntsmen.
Appreciate it, guys. Appreciate all you do for the kids and all the schools around.
Thanks, Coach.
Thanks, Coach. Good luck.
Thank you.
That was head coach Corey Dye of the Paint Valley Bearcats taking on the 10th-seeded Huntington Huntsmen in their Week 11 matchup. A couple other notable matchups in the Division 6 regions 23 and 24. We have Cole Grove taking on Malvern. That's a 5-12 game. Rock Hill traveling to Loudonville. Loudonville. That is a 7th-seeded Loudonville taking on the 10th-seeded Redmond. We already mentioned the Paint Valley Huntington matchup. Eastern taking on Cincinnati Country Day, and Lucasville Valley will travel to Allen East for their matchup. Any of those matchups catch your eye, guys?
I mean, I know we just talked to Coach, but Huntington and Paint Valley. Now, I'm going to say this. This is, as an SVC guy, it's going to be great to see an SVC team make it to Week 12. Have you guys looked at that region?
The 20 region, which one? 23?
24.
Oh, 24.
It is absurd.
Yeah,
like,
it's loaded, I know.
Yeah. So, they got Marion Local, who's going to win the state championship. It's just, that's who's going to win it.
Yep.
So they've got Marion Local. But the possibility of Huntington have to play their first ever playoff game, they could have been playing 3.5 hours away. They're going to play 12 minutes away. And that's awesome.
Road game.
Yeah. If you're going to have to go on the road, you go to the one that's close. And that's, it's their first ever trip to the playoffs. They're going to be really hyped up for that. The good thing for Paint Valley and Coach Dye is they know that. It's not like they're not going to be shocked by the energy that Huntington's going to come out. If DJ Crocker's healthy, I think that's going to make the biggest difference. But Braylon Robertson's been running like a madman for Paint Valley.
And tackling like a madman.
Yeah, he leads the SVC in tackles as of Week 9. and he's been a great addition to them. And Kevin Cooper can really play. I mean, that's going to be a good game. I would expect that I'll be the one there, and should be a great atmosphere.
Well, you talk about the Huntsmen, give some praise to what they've been able to do this year. The Ed Yates effect.
Yes.
You go from a 2-7, 1-5 in the league record from last year, you turn it into a 5-5 record, you go 3-4 in the league, and you get your first ever playoff berth in school history. He gets it done on the baseball diamond and comes over to the gridiron, gets the Huntsmen into their first ever playoff berth.
Yeah, he's done a whale of a job there. I know he's got a nice staff, and like the township is such a prideful place. They're always going to have the community backing, but they're going to really back a team that's winning, and they got a lot of guys back next year too. So this is huge for them to get an extra week of practice and maybe win their first ever playoff game.
I think if you'd have told me at the beginning of the year that Huntington goes 5-5 and makes the playoffs, I'd been like, no way.
No, especially after that week one.
Yeah,
after they lost 47-0 to Circleville, I did not think they had a chance.
Yeah, and I thought, well, honestly, after that week, I thought, here we go again with Huntington. But when they beat Adina, I was at that game, and I talked to Ed after the game, and he was just like, it's so cool for our kids because they've been through so much adversity. There's a lot of naysayers out there. There's a lot of doubters, a lot of people that said they couldn't do it. And going into week 10, they already knew they had done it. And I think they, even against the Piketon team that they lost to, I think they got better in that game because Piketon creates a little bit of a different challenge. And Ed kind of noted that too. When you get into the playoffs, teams like Paint Valley, a lot of high school playoff teams now run spread offenses, and that's what they, saw a lot of last week. So got better at defending that. They got better at they got better on defense in general. If they can stop Paint Valley offensively, and that's a tall task and easier said than done. But if they can, Puckett, who is very special, by the way. I was excited to get to see him play that week, and he lives up to that hype. We talked about Rocky Jones earlier. Anytime Quentin Puckett touches the ball, it's like, hey, he gets one crease and he's gone. But if their defense can just let them stick around, Huntington does have some offensive weapons. Corey, mentioned that on the call. So who knows?
Well, and if you get behind, it's hard to come back on a team that runs the ball.
Control the clock. Yep.
I think that's one thing that benefits Huntington is the fact that they know they can put up points on Paint Valley because they've done it before. Granted, it was in a losing effort, but you just have that. You have that inner confidence of knowing, okay, yes, we lost to this team, but we know we can score with them. We know we can hang with them, and we know if we get a stop, we could potentially beat them as well. So you already mentioned that there's such emotion coming into the game because it's your first ever playoff game. And even though you're not home, in a way you're kind of home because you're literally just down the road.
You just get to play on turf.
Exactly. Exactly. So I'm not going to predict the upset. I'm not sure I can commit myself to it, but this is going to be a really, really fun game to watch. And just an additional shout out, Huntington coach Sam Mitchell, he texted me and he told me that my bald head looked great on camera. So
then you put on a hat.
My guy,
Glockner hat.
Glockner hat. I got to give some pub, but I got to give Sam his shout out as well. Appreciate you, my guy.
I just see a shine. That's gone now.
No. Okay, we're gonna bust it back out.
Some other games on this slate: Colegrove hosting the 12th seeded Malvern. I don't remember their mascot either, but Rock Hill taking on
the Hornets.
The Hornets.
So the Hornets versus the Hornets.
I'm going to look it up because now it doesn't feel as
right.
Yeah.
But Loudonville also hosting Rock Hill. Rock Hill in our coverage area. While Bruce looks up the Hornets.
Hornets.
Let's
go.
Hornets.
Let's go.
So it is an insect matchup. That's what I'm saying. Okay.
Have you guys ever got stung by a hornet?
No.
It's horrible.
Well, one Hornet's going to stake the other Hornet.
Yes.
I'm taking the Hornets to win the game.
Wow.
Yeah. Way to go out on a limb.
Yeah.
That is a dad joke.
That's what I do best.
Yeah. Dawson Bryant, Colegrove. I don't know.
That's what I've never known.
I don't know which
one. Is the city Dawson Bryant or is the town Dawson Bryant or is the town Colegrove?
I think it's Colegrove, Ohio.
Dawson Bryant
High School.
Okay.
Dawson Bryant High School in Colegrove, Ohio.
So CGDB.
Someone tweet us if we're wrong. Let us know, please.
Yeah. So
It's like Frenchtown.
I don't think it's not like Frenchtown. I hope. But Colgrove has, Chase Hall.
Yep.
He's over.
That's what they have. That's all you need.
He broke the school record for rushing yards of the season, which that's been a good program.
Yeah.
It's a good program. It's a school that's had some success in the past. They play in a really tough OVC.
OVC tough.
Yeah. And along with Fairland, they're another school that I constantly miss their games. If I missed a game this year, it was probably Fairland or Colgrove.
Yeah, right.
But Colgrove was a team that I thought has a pretty decent chance to make it to Week 13. I think they're a pretty big favorite over Malvern. Malvern's got a heck of a bus ride down there, and then their next week they would also be a pretty big favorite. So I think they've got a decent chance to get to Week 13. As long as Chase Hall can stay healthy, because that dude he is
machine.
Yeah, and he's had to run the ball a ton this year. So.
Well, when you look at Malvern, obviously an 8-2 record, only one win against a team with a 500-plus record.
Mm-hmm.
And then obviously Colgrove started off the season 5-0. Then I believe 4 straight losses. Those were to Portsmouth, Gallia, Ironton, and Fairland, who we already talked about how tough the OVC was. And then they picked up a win Week 10 over Rock Hill, who's also in the playoff conversation here in this region. I think Colgrove comes away with that one.
Yeah.
Well, and those losses to Portsmouth and Gallia, too, are a combined 4 points. So you could also be easily looking at an 8-2 team here. Chase Hall, though, you mentioned it. You can't say enough about him and the ground game. And he runs hard. He runs north and south. He's one of those. He's going to lower his head down to initiate contact and run you over.
A little offensive targeting call.
Yeah. So hopefully that doesn't happen to Colgrove. But I think Colgrove gets past Malvern. I think you're right, John. I think they got a good shot to get into Week 13.
Rock Hill, Loudonville. Any thoughts on that game? Loudonville.
I've got a big thought.
Okay.
Why are we playing this game on a Friday? Why did they move all these games to Friday night?
I agree.
That's
is
a great
absurd.
question.
From the easiest way to get from Rock Hill to Loudonville via car is 3 hours and 13 minutes.
Oh, God.
Well, what else? I got to ask. How else would you get there?
As the crow flies.
Okay.
But no, I'm saying because you have the bus. The bus always takes longer.
Well,
so
true.
They've got a minimum
3.5
3.5 hour bus ride that's going through Columbus. If they say, we're not going to go to Columbus, we're going to go through Zanesville.
Right.
4 hours.
Can a bus even make it 3 hours on one tank?
It's not. It ain't going to be cheap. So why is that game on a Friday?
We're asking important questions.
No, it's so ridiculous that they went. You know what? People like to being able to see 2 playoff games in a weekend. No,
this is the portion of the show where John goes on his rant.
Because
this was not anticipated, but
because 4 to 5% of the people were like, I'm going to stay home and watch college football, so we're going to have slightly less people. No, it doesn't matter.
I'm not going to tag the OHSAA.
And then you know what we're going to hear? You know what we're going to hear about on Friday? How bad some of the officials are in some of these games.
Well, right, because they're spread out.
Yeah. So we have,
especially Eric Cox.
We have Eric Cox and his crew is probably
at Cincinnati St. Xavier.
Yeah, is going to be doing an awesome game.
Right.
Some of these really good crews are going to be at really good games, but some of these crews should not have playoff games yet. Just throwing it out there.
Well, last year, I think every year prior it was Friday,
Saturday. Yeah. So then you get matchups like this, like the big cities. They're not going to have games where they have to go that far.
Right.
So now you've got how many of these Rock Hill people are going to be able to make it to that 3.5 hours? How many are going to want to go 3.5 hours? For Rock Hill to have one of their better seasons in the last few years, and they have to go 3.5 hours on the road, where they're going to win.
That's what I was going to ask you. Are they going
to
make that 3 hour 13
minutes? I took the upset, too.
The Redmen are beating the Redbirds.
Okay.
You look at...
Let's go.
Loudonville.
Let's go, Rock Hill.
Loudonville, a 6-4 record in the Knox-Monroe Conference.
Let's go.
Rock Hill, notable win over Gallia in Week 8. That was a 35-31 win. Losses, Menford, Portsmouth, Fairland, Ireton, and Colegrove. We've mentioned how tough the OVC is all, really the whole show anytime we've mentioned a team from the OVC. So that'll be an interesting matchup to look at.
I'm going to take Loudonville, though. I mean, if you, I know, John, I'm ruining that rant.
Have you ever had to ride a bus 3.5 hours to a game?
Fires you up.
I don't think it does. That's the
yeah, I think that's the opposite.
Loudonville, though, the losses are good. I mean, Crestview, Mount Gilead, Centerburg, and Danville are all, 6 or more wins, and 3 of those teams have 8 or more wins. I mean, Rock Hill has been good, and like you said, they play in a good conference. They play good competition. They did beat Vinton County, another playoff team, which I'm sure garnered them some playoff points there.
And
but
ended Gallia's undefeated season.
Yeah, and then that Gallia win was huge.
Yeah.
We're not talking about them, going to Loudonville if they don't beat Gallia. So the Cordell French, though, I will say this: 1,000 yards rushing on the year. If they are to win in Loudonville,
he's going to be at 1,500.
He will. I don't know about that.
His legs will fall off of that.
But if they are to win at Loudonville, he's going to have a huge game.
They have played a better schedule. I'm going to say that they are dogs going on the road, but I'm going to take the Redmen.
Okay.
Take it out of the pouch.
Any other bold predictions? Division 6. I'm going to say
now you have
that
Eastern and Cincinnati Country
I'm going
Day.
to say that
Valley and Allen East.
Well, I tell you what, Eastern. Like, where did they come from? I mean, at the beginning of the season,
That's where they came from.
But at the beginning of the season, you think this team? I mean, come on, their only win was against Southeastern. It's like I'm sorry, they're only. Did they lose this? I think Southeastern's win was over Eastern.
33-0.
When Huntington beat them in week 2, I was like, that's gonna be their only win.
They started. Yeah, Eastern started 0-5.
Yeah,
and then won 4 or 5 to end the season. Got to share the title, and
now they're
here they are as an 11 seed.
So and have a shot to win.
They play. Their style is not easy for small schools to play against. So where they actually are able to throw the ball, that makes them a much more difficult.
Their quarterback's numbers is 24, though, and that bugs me.
What was
Lane Ruby was 22, 25.
No, he's 25.
Yeah, 25.
Yeah,
which
I mean,
is also really weird.
Yeah, which, like, you know what? Hey.
I don't know if I can trust that.
Yeah,
I don't know if I can trust a quarterback that has a number.
They should
erect
it's like a guy with 2 first or 2
at Southeastern is what they should do.
It's like a guy with 2 first names. Can't trust a quarterback with him. Can't trust a quarterback.
You need to talk
over
to
18.
Shane Combs about this.
He
is very very anti
quarterback
high quarterback numbers.
Oh, I'm with him.
What was the guy
totally
at Michigan a couple years?
Can you imagine watching Joe Burrow with like
years?
Oh, Denard. No,
something.
No, it was Devin Gardner.
I will say this though.
Honoring
I will say this to get us
weird.
Tom Harmon, whose son
we're completely off.
Hold on, whose son played at UCLA and also is on NCIS. Shout out CBS.
At this point,
I don't know their. Yeah, Mark Harmon.
I think I will say this:
1986,
Paint Valley.
most.
So Paint Valley, Derek. To your point,
Paint Valley.
Yeah, go ahead and make your point.
I will. But we mentioned bold predictions.
Dewey, you're supposed to keep us on the train.
I've done a pretty good.
I'll say Paint Valley. He's given up now. He's throwing it out. He threw away his.
Yeah, he threw away his sheet that I got it back for him.
Paint Valley beats Huntington by 2 touchdowns.
Oh, you're going by 2 again?
I'm going to go by 2 again.
Bold.
I don't know. I'm going emotion. I'm going. Okay.
1986, world's sexiest man alive.
I know you guys can't see what John just showed me. It was really unexpected.
Mark Harmon dominated
Paint
the
Valley
battle of
will
the
win
stars.
over Huntington. They will win, but I think Huntington keeps it very close. I think it's going to take a late score for the Bearcats to pull it out in the end. I just think Paint Valley has one too many athletes, and they will just find a way to make that one play to score late and pull off the win. Sorry, Sam.
Hey, Paint Valley wins in week. Paint Valley wins in week 11, and then goes to Allen East and knocks off the Mustangs. That's my
okay.
That's yeah.
Okay,
I like that. And I tell you what, I do not count Eastern out though. I know Cincinnati Country Day there is 9-1, but they've not beat a lot of great teams. You look at their record and their losses to Summit Country Day, but their wins are over 3-7, 3-5, 0-9, 7-3, 6-4. But then it's 0-10, 6-4, 2-7, 4-6. I mean,
not impressive.
And Eastern has all the momentum in the world, and as you said, they were hard to defend. So
got a shot.
Do we have any impact players for any of these teams that would aid their cause to advance another week? Anybody on Rockville, Eastern, Cogan?
I mean, I think we already talked about those. I mean, you said I'll say Carson Free for Paint Valley, and I'll throw in another Quentin Puckett for Huntington.
Chase Hall is obviously, but
yeah, I went with Puckett as well. He kind of seems like the big play guy for the Huntsmen. I know we did the live stream of the Huntsmen and Southeastern playing each other back in week 7.
One of those sounds right.
And I think he broke off what seemed to be it was like a 75-yard, maybe it wasn't that much, but it was like 60-yard touchdown. And, I think Coach Dye kind of talked about, we don't know if, how healthy DJ Crocker will be, as, he's been banged. He got banged up in that game. I think he had 2 carries and then exited the contest and never went back in.
But was fine in week 9 against Adena. So
he got banged up a little bit.
Oh, I didn't know.
Against Piketon.
Gotcha.
So he ran hard. He ran hard when he was in. But I think he maybe didn't go back in because of, they still had a week 11. So
that's kind of what I figured it was. In that game against Southeastern, it got to the point in the second half where, you're up 3 scores and it's like, he may have been able to come back in, but when you're up that much, you don't want to, force a guy to go back into a game when he doesn't actually have to.
Right.
And I believe with that is all we have for our coverage of the football playoff preview for all of these regions and divisions. Thank you to all of those who made this possible, as well as everything else we do. We have countless sponsors that make all the live streams, articles, interviews, write-ups, all that stuff possible. You can check that out on SOSAOhio.com. All kinds of cool stuff over there. And if you want to watch this back, it should be posted to our YouTube channel as soon as this is over. That's Southern Ohio Sports Authority on YouTube. And you guys have anything else you want to chime in here as we
playoff football?
Let the fun begin. It is week 11, guys.
Thanks, Corey Hall, Jacob Wise, and Tyler Hart for your work behind the scenes and not having me cough on the air.
And with that, we thank you all for watching the Horizon Football Playoff Preview Show here on Southern Ohio Sports Authority, presented by OhioHealth. We'll catch you in Week 11.
Good.